Chapter 1445. Audjua hadn't expected Jogong Ryoko to transfer to number 60 high school because of him. And he had actually offended the entire Jogong family? Audjua found this a little inconceivable. In fact, there had always been doubts about the large-scale disaster that had suddenly descended on the gate between worlds 6 years ago, and this wasn't the first time that Audjua had faced such doubts. As Wang Ling's number 1 disciple and scapegoat, Audjua's mental fortitude had long since been tempered to the point that he could even fool a lie-detecting magic treasure. Thus, in the face of Jogong's questioning, Audjua just smiled, his heart as calm as an ancient well. He skillfully operated the tea set on the headmaster's table, made a cup of tea for Jogong, and handed it to her. I don't know why classmate Jogong says that, but what happened 6 years ago should have long since been settled. Sniffing the fragrance of the tea and the hot water, Jogong Ryoko's anger when she saw Audjua suddenly seemed to ease a lot. Heh, who wants to drink tea made by a liar like you? Although she said so, she still reached out to take the teacup. Classmate Jogong, you need evidence for everything. I don't know why the Jogong family hates me so much, but if there's any misunderstanding, I think it's better to clear things up as soon as possible, said Audjua. He sat down opposite Jogong, and at the same time, observed her expression. She was an ice beauty, and her expression didn't change in the slightest. Emotions didn't show directly on her face. Audjua was a little familiar with this feeling. After all, his Shifu was also this kind of person. Liar, do you really think I don't have evidence? Jogong Ryoko sipped her tea and gazed at Audjua with her purple eyes. Although the incident happened a long time ago, our Jogong family has put in a lot of effort. We did indeed find a witness at the scene. Furthermore, this witness said that the person who defeated the Demon King was a boy with dead fish eyes. Speaking of this, Jogong Ryoko paused. Speaking of dead fish eyes, she remembered that she seemed to have seen a dead fish eye not long ago. But for some reason, there was a lack of memory in her mind, and she couldn't recall it. But this wasn't the point. The point was that she had come to Huaxiao Nation this time and chosen number 60 high school. She had come for Audjua from the beginning. One reason was to expose this swindler, and the other was to use this topic to expand the Jogong family's market in Huaxiao Nation. You mean, a witness? Audjua was slightly taken aback. The scene at that time was too messy. There was dust and smoke from collapsed buildings everywhere, as well as thick smoke from all kinds of explosions. He had saved a lot of people in the beginning with the team, and had already confirmed that the core area where Loopy Toad had landed had already been evacuated, and there wouldn't be a third person there. So, where did this witness come from? Ryoko Kamiya did not keep him in suspense. Instead, she took out the evidence that she had prepared in advance from her small bag. It was a photo, and what shocked Audjua was that it was actually a GIF. Can GIFs be printed now? Audjua stared at the photo in disbelief. This is a digital camera photo seal, and the person sealed in this photo is the witness of our Kyuya family, Kyuya Ryoko said. Audjua stared at the photo. He saw a little girl in a light yellow dress. She was only about 5 or 6 years old, and she was knitting a sweater in the photo. A day ghost? Audjua stared at the photo for a few seconds before finally picking up on the clues. He hadn't expected the witness that Ryoko Kamiya was talking about to be a day ghost. You don't look so useless. Ryoko wasn't surprised that Audjua could tell, but to be able to directly identify the type of ghost based on a sealed photo, he definitely had to have the vision of an expert. Their Jogong family had been responsible for exorcising demons for generations. Although Jogong still hated this swindler Audjua, it had to be said that he was much better than her disappointing brothers. This instantly made Ryoko feel a little humiliated and angry, and she said to Audjua, but for a swindler like you who habitually hogs glory, you should also have some special knowledge in the area of exorcism. Audjua, it's just the words of a 5 or 6-year-old girl, how can classmate Jogong believe it? Audjua smiled calmly. She said that the one who defeated the Demon King was a boy. How old was the boy at that time? 10 years old, Ryoko Kamiya answered. 10 years old. No matter how talented a cultivator is, at this age, He would at best be a golden core cultivator. A golden core cultivator can defeat a demon king? Audra laughed. Weren't you also a golden core cultivator at that time? Ryoko asked. As I said, the monster king was already very weak after a series of attacks, so I only went to give him the final blow. Audra retorted, I've already clarified this with a lot of the media. As for the media's increasingly ridiculous claims about the 10,000 miles parting air sword, those are indeed exaggerated. However, Ryoko Kamiya didn't buy Audra's explanation. You're just trying to flatter me, that's all. Kamiya Ryoko snorted. Also, let me tell you, the day-wandering ghost girl in this photo looks like she's only 5 or 6 years old. But that was because she was at that age when she died. That was why his appearance was fixed. Little Yellow appeared in that area 30 years ago, which is to say that she actually has the mind of an adult. I know what you want to say, Audra replied. Classmate Kamiya wants to say that this day-wandering ghost's words are in fact legally binding, right? Yes, liar. Ryoko Kamiya's lips curled up. So, are you panicking? No. Audra shrugged indifferently. I know that a day-wandering ghost's words alone are far from enough. So I have to find the boy who was seen by this day-wandering ghost back then. At that moment, Ryoko Kamiya got up and abruptly took a step forward. Her purple eyes fixed on Audra, and the two of them almost instantly closed the distance between them. Ryoko Kamiya, according to our Kamiya family speculation, you have repeatedly performed miraculous feats in recent years. In recent years, you've performed miraculous feats again and again. A lot of things may seem irrelevant, but they are in fact closely related to number 60 high. So we have reason to suspect that the boy might be studying at number 60 high. They were too close, and from this angle, they just happened to be facing each other. Audra tilted his head slightly and pretended that he hadn't seen anything. Classmate Kamiya, you're too close. Ryoko Kamiya hurriedly got up and covered herself. You pervert. Audra was instantly unconvinced. But I still have to be able to see him. Classmate Kamiya, you don't have any, how can I be considered a pervert? Hearing this, Ryoko Kamiya took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. She then quickly opened the office door and prepared to leave. She only left Audra with her cold back. Wait for me, Audra, we'll see. I'll handle the registration procedures for classmate Kamiya. Have a safe trip. Audra smiled and nodded. Bang! Then, the office door was instantly shut. Seeing that Ryoko Kamiya was gone, Audra heaved a sigh of relief. This young miss from a foreign country. She was a little tricky. At that moment, Audra glanced at the ring on his thumb. This ring was one of the magic weapons Wang Ling had given him. It was called the fake heart ring, also known as the substitute heart ring. As the name implied, it was a ring that could replace a heart with a space. The heart in Audre's body right now was a fake heart created by the substitute heart ring, while the real heart was sealed inside the ring. The heart was a vital part of the body, and the substitute heart ring was originally meant to protect it. But it was different for Audre. Because the heartbeat of the fake heart didn't belong to him, this was one of the main reasons why Audre could remain calm in the face of questioning, and thus deceive those lie-detecting magic treasures. In fact, the heartbeat of the heart that was sealed in the heart substitution ring space was really frantic. When Ryoko Kamiya approached, Audre could clearly feel his heartbeat accelerate under the other party's barrage of questions. Chapter 1446. Audre hadn't expected Ryoko Kamiya to be so aggressive. Since they wanted to further expand the Jogong family's market in Huashu Nation, it was likely that their current strategy was to attack him, the director, who was currently in the limelight. Audre was tired. There had already been a lot of doubts about him online. If Kamiya Ryoko released all the evidence, it would probably cause another storm. Only the heavens knew that the Jogong family would use a day-wandering ghost as a witness. This was because there was indeed no third outsider in the core region at that time. Fang Xing was one of them, but he wasn't an outsider now. Furthermore, even if the Jogong family could find out who he was, given his temper, he wouldn't say anything. It looks like I'll have to discuss this matter with Shifu as soon as possible, and tell him to be careful in the next few days. Audra vaguely sensed that something wasn't right. He immediately sent Wang Ling a text message to warn him to be careful of that girl called Jiu Gong. Because in the previous conversation, Jiu Gong had specifically mentioned the iconic dead fish eyes. Furthermore, she firmly believed that the boy with dead fish eyes at the scene was studying at number 60 high school. Master, be careful. There's a girl called Jiu Gong who seems to be searching for dead fish eyes all over the world. She's suspecting what happened 6 years ago. After typing out the text message, Audra saved Kamiya Ryoko's phone number in his phone based on the relevant information provided by the Kamiya family. Name note, Queen A Dun. Audra closed his phone and leaned back on Headmaster Chen's leather sofa as he pondered for a while. That girl Ryoko Kamiya, it was indeed not easy to deal with. But the other party's choice to directly reveal his identity and come to number 60 high for an internal investigation was definitely the wrong choice. Anyone who had fought werewolves knew that revealing one's identity right from the start wasn't a wise choice. Number 60 high was his turf. It was impossible for them to cause trouble here. Thinking this, Audra sent another message to another person. Master's wife, that person called Kamiya Ryoko, is investigating Shifu. She came to school to register today, be careful. On the other side, Lotus Sun replied almost instantly, who's your master's wife? Even through the screen, Audra could feel the steam. He. There was going to be a good show to watch. Given Lotus Sun's personality, Ryoko Kuya might not be able to get away with anything at number 60 high. You should know. The last girl who had tried to curry favor with Wang Ling. Everything had been arranged clearly by Miss Sunday. On the other side, Wang Ling was lost in deep thought after receiving the message. He realized that people nowadays really couldn't resist praising. When he was in front of the teaching building, he was secretly glad that the newcomer Kamiya Ryoko didn't come for him. The result was unexpected. The other party circled around. In the end, he sprinted in his direction. In conclusion, the only piece of evidence in Kamiya Yoshiko's hands was probably that day wandering ghost that had lived for decades. But this day ghost could not be used as conclusive evidence. After all, everyone knew that the Jugong family had always been responsible for exorcising demons. Only God knew if this day wandering ghost was just making it up to save its life. So Kamiya Yoshiko's purpose in entering number 60 high was in fact to look for Wang Ling. As long as they could find the boy that the Daycrawler ghost had seen, it would be the key evidence. After some calculations, Wang Ling had a general idea of what Ryoko Kuya was thinking. He closed his eyes and released his spiritual sense. He directly locked onto Ryoko Kuya's position in the school. Logically speaking, Ryoko Kuya was only here to register today, and could leave once she was done. But it seemed that the other party had no intention of leaving. Inside the teaching building, Ryoko Kuya strolled proudly down the school corridor. She was like a black swan, exuding an astonishingly cold and elegant aura. The only one who didn't fit in was the female bodyguard behind her, who was carrying a bag full of pancakes. Is this the transfer student from Sun Island? She's so beautiful. She's dressed like a gangster. She's not a sick girl, is she? You have to be careful when dating someone like this, or you might end up with a chopper. I think our president is better. She's too aloof, and I don't dare go up and talk to her at all. All the voices around her reached Ryoko's ears. Her eyes were like rays as they swept around. A lot of people thought that Ryoko was angry, and quickly shut their mouths. In fact, this was just Ryoko Kuya secretly looking for dead fish eyes. Ryoko wouldn't easily get angry in front of outsiders, which was a good cultivation formed under the traditional education of the Ryoko family. As a young lady, she had to have the attitude of a young lady. She enjoyed the resources that most people in the world didn't have. It was normal for there to be some criticism. So Ryoko had long been accustomed to the comments of outsiders. Besides, these words weren't vicious, and they didn't even have the qualifications to make her heart beat faster. She purposely slowed down her pace as she walked past every classroom, searching for boys with dead fish eyes. Then she remembered their appearance. Although no one dared to be too close to her during the whole process, it was still a bit too much. After searching the first 2 classrooms, a girl seemed to have summoned up her courage and walked over to Ryoko Kuya. She took the initiative to reach out her hand. "Hello, Ryoko Kuya. You are?" Ryoko looked at the girl's hand, thinking about something, but in the end, she didn't shake it. She just said, "What's the matter? Just say it." "I'm the secretary of the student union. Our president would like to invite you over." The short-haired girl smiled. She hadn't expected Ryoko to be so cold and aloof, and she withdrew her hand a little awkwardly. "Does your president often exploit you?" Ryoko found it interesting. She knew who the president of number 60 high school student union was. Huagwa Water Curtain Group and the Ryoko family also had business cooperation. Ryoko Kuya and Lotus Sun had once met at a family gathering, but that had been several years ago. "No, there's no such thing. The president is very good to us." The short-haired girl was terrified. "Then why do your hands look like chicken claws? It's obvious that you've been working with words for a long time." Ryoko Kuya sneered. She then took out an unopened bottle of hand cream from her bag and gave it to the girl. This was a special hand cream made by the Ryoko family. It was made with pure natural ingredients and had an immediate effect. It couldn't be bought on the market. "Ryoko Kuya, don't get me wrong. I'm not giving you this because your hands look like chicken claws. It's just a fee for leading the way." Ryoko Kuya said expressionlessly, "Then, let's go." "Okay." The short-haired girl was flattered. On the way, Ryoko suddenly asked a question. "Oh, by the way, what's the student union system like? How is the president elected?" "Of course it's elected by public vote every year. Of course, if there are objections to the president's work, he can also be publicly impeached." Ryoko Kuya nodded. "But why do you ask, Ryoko?" The short-haired girl was curious and had a bad feeling. "Because I want to be the president." Ryoko's answer was concise and to the point. Chapter 1447. When Lotus Sun received Audjua's text message, she almost immediately felt a sense of danger. When she had seen Jogong Ryoko's name on the list earlier, she had vaguely felt that the Jogong family's purpose in entering number 60 high school wasn't pure. In the end, she hadn't expected this moth to be even bigger than she had imagined. Was it actually because of what had happened 6 years ago? She didn't know why the Jogong family was blaming Audjua for everything, but since this matter had something to do with Wang Ling, she naturally couldn't just sit back and watch. It had taken her so long to finally learn classmate Wang Ling's secret. How could she let this secret leak out so easily? Jogong Ryoko, right. Lotus Sun took a deep breath, and then directly accessed the surveillance footage from the computer in the student union office to find out Jogong Ryoko's current location. Everything was just as Audjua had said. Jogong Ryoko seemed to be strolling around the school, but was in fact deliberately checking out the boys with dead fish eyes. The situation was more urgent than she had imagined. The girl immediately sent a text message to a student union officer and asked her to bring Jogong Ryoko to her office. And so, 5 or 6 minutes later, this aloof young miss dressed in a dark Gothic style appeared at the door of the student union office with an arrogant expression on her face. Seeing this, the female bodyguard carrying the bag of pancakes behind her hurriedly stopped the female officer and closed the office door. There was a strong smell of gunpowder. It was as if a big fight could break out at any moment. Will they fight? The female officer was a little worried. You're thinking too much. They're both young misses, how could they fight? I'm actually saving you by pulling you back. Saving me? Knowing too much isn't a good thing, said the female bodyguard. This was the conclusion of her many years as a personal bodyguard. It was better not to get involved in a fight between young misses so easily. Otherwise, there was a high chance that you would be caught and thrown into the river. Sure enough, everything was as the female bodyguard had predicted. It was impossible for them to fight, but the smell of gunpowder was indeed very strong. Feeling the door close behind her, Jogong Ryoko walked briskly to the desk. She propped herself up on the table and stared at the calm girl in front of her with her purple eyes, a faint murderous look in her eyes. Lotus-san, long time no see. Yeah, long time no see. Lotus-san smiled. I didn't expect you to actually choose number 60 high this time. Because she had already seen Kwamiya Lianko's temper, Lotus-san didn't feel uncomfortable with Kwamiya Ryoko's somewhat aggressive attitude. Kwamiya Yoshiko could be considered an old acquaintance of hers, so she had a certain degree of understanding of her. Thus, it might be easier for Lotus-san to deal with Jiao Gong than for Jiang Inying. We've all grown a lot. But with your cultivation level, why haven't you broken through to foundation establishment? I'm about to break through. Being able to break through the foundation establishment stage to the Jindan stage in the first year of high school, isn't this amazing growth? Kamiya Yoshiko said as she found a chair and sat down. It was normal for girls to compare with each other. Lotus-san didn't find this strange, and the expression on her face clearly showed some helplessness. When it comes to realms, just let nature take its course. Also, it's useless for girls to just grow in realms. What do you mean? Kwamiya Ryoko frowned slightly, feeling that there was more to it than meets the eye. You know what I mean. Lotus-san smiled reservedly as she looked at Kwamiya's flatness. Sometimes, flatness wasn't just an adjective, it could also be a noun. Realizing that Lotus-san had turned the tables on her, the corners of Kwamiya Ryoko's mouth twitched. Aren't you the same? A little better than you. Lotus-san straightened her back to show off her curvaceous figure. In a situation where there wasn't an obvious gap between them, being a little better hurt the most. It had to be said that Lotus-san's words indeed had the effect of lightning bolts. Kwamiya Ryoko instantly had a nervous breakdown. She was both embarrassed and annoyed, and didn't know what to say. After all, this was a topic that only girls would compare and constantly pay attention to. It could only be said that as the president of number 60 high school's student council, Lotus-san was in the end Lotus-Sunday. Such an outstanding ability to set the pace, indeed wasn't something that ordinary people could do. With just a few words, Jiogong Ryoko was flustered, and she even forgot why she had come to the student council in the first place. Although, on the surface, Jiogong Ryoko's expression didn't change much. But Lotus-san knew that classmate Jiogong's heart must be in a mess right now. However, Lotus-san already admired her for being able to control her emotions and not let them show on her face. She was indeed a respectable opponent. Unfortunately, her level wasn't high enough. After a moment of dead silence, Jiogong Ryoko took a deep breath and braced herself to get back at Lotus-Sunday. Your family started out in the elixir business. So I actually have reason to suspect that you've taken some special elixir. Contrary to Jiogong Ryoko's expectations, the girl sitting in the president's seat directly admitted it. Lotus-san, that's right, classmate Jiogong, I took some supplements. You're actually admitting it just like that? Jiogong Ryoko was alarmed and astonished at Lotus-san's strategy. She felt like she was now playing chess with Lotus-Sunday. But she couldn't understand the other party's strategy at all. Directly admitting it was fine. But what kind of operation was this? Jiogong Ryoko felt that this was actually a very private matter. It was like some celebrities who clearly had plastic surgery but said they hadn't. But for girls, that part, of course it had to be natural, so they could show off. Although I took supplements, they're all natural. Lotus-san smiled slightly. Classmate Jiogong should be well aware of the importance of genes. Genes? The supplements I'm taking can only stimulate my original genes and allow me to grow. But if your genes aren't good enough, it's useless no matter how much you eat. Lotus-san smiled. It's like some of the growth products on the market. If your parents aren't tall, no matter how much you eat, you won't be able to change your genes and grow taller. The more Jiogong Ryoko listened, the more she felt that there was something wrong with her words. Speak clearly, what do you mean? Lotus-san hurriedly apologized. Classmate Jiogong, don't misunderstand, I didn't mean anything else. I just knew that classmate Jiogong might come to number 60 high, so I prepared a greeting gift in advance. Saying that, she opened a drawer and put the gift box she had prepared on the table. Jiogong Ryoko walked over and stroked the box. What's this? The supplements I took. Lotus Sun smiled. As long as you take them, they'll take effect immediately. Heh, do I need something like that? Jiogong Ryoko snorted, but still reached out to accept the gift with a grateful expression. Don't get me wrong, I'm just leaving it for my female bodyguard. Who knows if it's poisoned? Understood. Lotus Sun nodded. After accepting the gift, Jiogong Ryoko immediately turned to leave. It wasn't until the office door was closed that Lotus Sun's expression completely relaxed. Classmate Jiogong was indeed very difficult to deal with. However, she had won this round, because the so-called supplements in the gift box weren't real supplements. Instead, it was a mild hallucinogenic water called "The Whole World is Dead Fish Eyes." It could be consumed orally or inhaled to achieve the same effect. Those who were affected would hallucinate for 72 hours. As the name suggested, everyone's eyes would turn into dead fish eyes in the eyes of those who were affected. This was what Lotus Sun had predicted might happen, and she had specially commissioned the group's research department to secretly prepare the medicine. She hadn't expected it to really come in handy this time. Elsewhere, after leaving the office, Jiogong Ryoko immediately went to the women's restroom. She couldn't wait to open the bottle of the supplements. First, she sniffed it, and then frowned. This should be taken orally. Jiogong Ryoko was deeply conflicted. After all, this was something that had to be eaten. After careful consideration, Jiogong Ryoko felt that it was better to be cautious. Heh, Lotus Sun, are you trying to trick me into taking the medicine? I won't fall for it. I'm going to test it and see what on earth it is. So, she resisted the urge to take it and put the medicine away again. But Jiogong Ryoko didn't know. In fact, she had already fallen for it. The whole world is dead fish eyes medicine was equally effective when inhaled. And this was also within Lotus Sun's calculations. Chapter 1448. Although Ryoko Komiya's heart was really eager for the tonic, her rationality eventually overcame her desire. Because this wasn't the first time she had fallen for Lotus Sun's tricks. At that banquet of the rich and powerful, Ryoko Komiya believed Lotus Sun's words and ate a pill that was said to make the body grow faster. She thought it was the supplement of her dreams. It turned out to be a rapid growth pill. As a result, when Ryoko woke up that night, she lay directly in the pile of hair. Those who didn't know would think that they were filming a sequel to The Grudge. However, that was a long time ago. Everyone had a time when they were young and mischievous, and Lotus Sun was no exception. Lotus Sun, do you think I'll be fooled a second time after being fooled once? Komiya Ryoko sneered inwardly and walked out of the bathroom confidently. Miss, how is it? How do you feel? The female bodyguard leaned over and asked. No, I didn't. Because I thought about it, it might be a trap, Ryoko said calmly. Miss is wise. The female bodyguard nodded. She secretly rejoiced at her young Miss's wit. Actually, if you're still worried, you can let me taste it next time. Make sure there's no poison, then. In your dreams. Komiya Ryoko glanced at the female bodyguard. You're already big enough. If you get any bigger, are you trying to inflate a hot air balloon? The female bodyguard fell silent. She lowered her head, not daring to make a sound. Yet, Ryoko Jimiya was still staring at her, and the look in her eyes was getting more and more strange. Wait. Did you have plastic surgery? Plastic surgery? No. The female bodyguard panicked. Really? Ryoko Komiya was skeptical. No. I definitely didn't get breast implants. The female bodyguard said. Who asked you that? Ryoko Komiya frowned. I mean, why do I feel like your eyes are different from before? I remember that you have double eyelids. How come you have dead fish eyes now? Dead fish eyes? No way. The female bodyguard quickly took out her mobile phone and turned on the selfie mode to observe. She had spent a lot of money on her eyelids, but they still shone beautifully under the filter. Damn it. Kimuya Ryoko rubbed her forehead. She felt that she must have been too anxious to find the dead fish-eyed boy, causing her to hallucinate. However, none of this mattered. The search for the dead fish-eyed boy had to continue. She had already checked 2 classrooms earlier. Just as she was about to continue her search, she saw the number 60 high alumni walking toward her, each and every one of them staring at her with dead fish eyes. Ryoko Kimuya slowly sent a question mark. Were there so many dead fish eyes in this school? Because of Audiobook's early message, Wang Ling was a little absent-minded in class all morning. He was afraid that Ryoko Kimuya would find him. Therefore, he had been secretly watching Kimuya Yoshiko's movements. Unexpectedly, when it was almost noon, Ryoko Kimuya went back on her own, as expected of the Hwagwa Water Curtain Group. To think that he could even develop something as miraculous as the dead fish eyes potion. Back then, he had been worried whether it would be a blessing or a curse if Lotus Sun found out about him. Looking at it now, he felt that he might have been worrying too much. Relying on her family's technology and money, the girl could provide him with a good cover. This time, it was all thanks to Lotus Sunday. Indeed, Wang Ling was grateful from the bottom of his heart. He felt that he should express his gratitude. Should I give her crispy noodle snacks? Wang Ling rubbed his chin, feeling a little conflicted. Giving her crispy noodle snacks would be a little too obvious. After all, he was probably the only person in this class who could give her crispy noodle snacks. It would be better to make it simple. Thus, while Lotus Sun was still in the student union office at noon, Wang Ling slipped a White Rabbit creamy candy into her pencil case in passing. This was another childhood snack that Wang Ling loved deeply. It was just that he liked it far less than crispy noodle snacks. It was just an ordinary liking. Sometimes, in order to replenish the sugar in his body, Wang Ling would basically carry 1 or 2 of them with him. Of course, while this White Rabbit creamy candy looked simple, it had actually been enchanted. As for its effect, he just had to wait until Lotus Sun ate it. Elsewhere, Ryoko Kimuya, who thought there was something wrong with her brain, quickly returned to the high-end villa she was staying in. This was a place the Kimuya family had specially bought to make it easier for Ryoko to continue her activities in Songhai City. The price of the entire villa was 600,000 per square meter, which was undoubtedly an aristocratic area. Kimuya's villa was divided into 5 floors, including a basement. Ryoko's personal space was on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The first floor was used to receive foreign guests, while the basement was occupied by security personnel as well as some researchers. Is Miss feeling better? The female bodyguard poured Kimuya a cup of hot water. Neither she nor Kimuya had expected to be schemed against on their first trip to number 60 high school. A private doctor gave Kimuya Ryoko a detailed checkup. This was a doctor whom the Kimuya family had specially assigned to accompany her. He was a very young but very experienced lad. He had very neat, slicked back hair and wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, looking completely like a society elite. Dr. Kawamura, how is it? The female bodyguard asked as she looked at the doctor. Kimura Kawamura quickly concluded, Miss must have been drugged with some kind of hallucinogen. Hallucinogen? Ryoko frowned. I didn't eat that kind of thing, you don't have to take it. High-grade hallucinogens are equally effective when inhaled. Kimura Daikawa put down the stethoscope and said, Inhale. Ryoko seemed to realize something in an instant. She didn't say anything and just clenched her fists. It seems that Miss should already know which part is the problem. Kimura Daikawa tried to restrain his smile. Enough nonsense. Is there any way to remove the hallucinogenic effects? Jiao Gong asked. To remove the effects of a hallucinogen, we need to prescribe the right medicine, but if we take into account the analysis of the ingredients and the research and development time, it usually takes a long time. The young lady's symptoms were actually not very strong. It will be lifted on its own in about 2 to 3 days, Kimura Daikawa said. This time, I underestimated my opponent. Kwamiya Ryoko sighed. The future is long. Miss, you don't have to be so hasty. Master said that the current situation is favorable to us, said Kimura Daikawa. So as long as we follow the prescribed order, there will be no problem. I know. Ryoko Kwamiya nodded. In fact, she had fallen into the trap this time. But for Ryoko Kwamiya, it wasn't like she hadn't gained anything at all. If that dead fish-eyed boy wasn't at number 60 high school, then why had Lotus Sun given her that kind of drug to cover it up? This showed that she might already be very close to the truth. Also, it seemed that Lotus Sun definitely knew something. At that moment, the female bodyguard looked at the time and reminded her, Miss, the internet celebrity tech expert you made an appointment with, Master Shochong, is already at the door. Ryoko Kwamiya nodded. Have him wait for me on the first floor. I'll go down after I change. Chapter 1449. Brother Black smiled. Life or death was hard to predict. Created by Brother Chong, self-destructed, taking advantage of Fan Xing's death-seeking operation last time, Shochong's fully automatic escape apartment became a hot topic. Shochong himself directly rushed to the forefront of popular civilian scientists. As one of the representatives of the new generation of exorcism, Jimiya Ryoko had always been very interested in cutting-edge technology. Many aspects of the Jyogong family's exorcism had been integrated with modern science, using technology to complete various tasks. As a result, the customer satisfaction rate had been greatly improved. Jimiya Ryoko's summoning of Shochong this time had actually been decided long before the Jimiya family had come to China. In other words, before Shochong had become as popular as he was now, the Jimiya family had already been on track with him. While Shochong waited in the reception room on the first floor, the villa's maids served him the electricity that had been carefully prepared. About 10 minutes later, Jimiya Ryoko changed into a purple maple leaf kimono and slowly walked down the stairs in wooden clogs. On the back of the kimono was the Jimiya family's crow emblem. This was the kind of outfit Jimiya had carefully prepared out of respect for scientists. After going downstairs, her purple eyes locked onto Shochong. This was the first time she had seen Shochong in person, and she was a little surprised that he was actually as slovenly as he looked in his photos. He was wearing a pair of straw sandals and a yellowed white coat. His face was full of stubble and even his hair was a mess of seaweed. Jimiya Ryoko felt that her good impression of him had instantly eroded. She had met 3 people in total today. Putting aside Lotus Sun, the remaining 2 were Jua and Shochong. Although Jua was a very annoying liar, Jimiya felt that he was many times better than Shochong in terms of first impression. At the very least, he was a clean man. Miss, how about I let him go back, the female bodyguard said in a low voice, sensing that the atmosphere wasn't right. I invited him here, how can I let him go back so easily? Jimiya Ryoko frowned. She could only brace herself for now, because there was a very strange smell on Shochong. Jimiya Ryoko chose to sit on a sofa a few seats away. Unexpectedly, as soon as she sat down, Shochong's butt automatically moved toward her, as if he had a pulley installed. Kwamiya Ryoko was speechless. Hello, Miss Jyogong. Shochong giggled. Although this is the first time we've met, I've actually brought a lot of experimental magic treasures that haven't been mass-produced yet. For example, just now when you saw me, you automatically closed the distance between us. This is actually the effect of the social nano underwear that I invented. Social nano underwear. There was an outbreak of influenza a while ago. During such an epidemic, it's actually very important to maintain a good social distance. Shochong began to introduce his product. And this, social nano underwear, can automatically maintain a distance of about 1 meter from the person you see. You don't even need to walk. You just need to sit like this, and your butt will automatically approach it as if it has a pulley. What if he runs away? The female bodyguard asked curiously. That's a good question, Mississippi, Shochong said. If he ran away, of course he would chase after him. The faster the opponent runs, the faster the buttocks move. So the flaw of this product is that if the speed is too fast, the strong friction will easily burn the buttocks. As expected of Master Shochong. Hearing this, Jimiya Ryoko took a deep breath. She suppressed her urge to curse and did her best to maintain her composure as a young miss. After all, she was the one who had invited him, and she couldn't lose her temper over a disagreement. Also, Jimiya Ryoko had in fact investigated Shochong beforehand, and knew that he had accumulated a lot of inventions that were basically useless, but whether these inventions were useful or not wasn't the point. What Jimiya Ryoko was interested in was Shochong's ingenious design ideas. Master Shochong should know why I'm here. I've always heard that the Jimiya family is going to attack Huashio Nation's demon and exorcism market. Shochong smiled. Ever since he became popular, he had been looking for a suitable partner, intending to mass-produce his inventions and creations. The Jimiya family had contacted him a long time ago. He felt that this was a good opportunity. He had worked for Fan Xing before, but Fan Xing's heart wasn't in the right place. Furthermore, it seemed like he had been cursed by some evil spirit, and had to be hospitalized every 2 or 3 days. A fine bird chose a good tree to nest in. Shochong had long wanted to work in a different place. No matter how rich Fan Xing was. Could he compare to the support of the entire Jimiya family? As long as the Jimiya family can use my products, I think they'll be like a tiger that has grown wings when it comes to demon and exorcism. Now, let me introduce. Master, please wait. Jimiya Ryoko didn't intend to let Shochong go on with his introduction, and instead went straight to the point. We do need some high-end scientific research products to help our Jimiya family expand our market, but it's hard to say whether the magic treasures developed by Master will meet our needs. If Miss Jimiya needs a customized magic treasure, that's possible. Why don't you tell me what you think, said Shochong. I need to find a boy with dead fish eyes. But it's been 6 years, and this boy is now 16 years old. Are there any relevant clues? The only clue we have now is that this boy might be in the high school I'm about to transfer to. Jimiya Ryoko frowned. And I'm not sure if he's had plastic surgery. Plastic surgery doesn't matter. You can change your appearance, but you can't change your genes. If there's genetic data related to this boy, it might be much easier to find him, said Shochong. Right now, the only clue we have is the testimony of a day ghost. Jimiya Ryoko said with a headache. Back then, it was just a boy, and his facial features hadn't fully developed. The Jimiya family had also found many masters to predict what the boy would look like when he grew up based on the description of the day ghost. The result was unreliable. So, what is Miss Jimiya's need? Shochong felt that things were a bit interesting. I hope that Master can develop a magic treasure to help me find this dead fish-eyed boy. It's difficult, and the research and development costs. Is 5 billion enough? Deal. Chapter 1450. My research and development has always been fast. It will only take a week for an experimental version of the artifact to appear. Before that, please be patient, Miss Jogong. At this moment, Shochong got up and said with a smile, I already have a general design idea, so Miss Jogong, I will take my leave first. As expected of Master Shochong, I look forward to the results of your research and development. Jogong nodded and tried to squeeze out a smile, but unfortunately, the expression on her face was still very stiff. No problem. Shochong smiled. I will arrange for someone to go to Master Shochong's Research Institute to sign the contract. 5 billion in research and development funds will be paid immediately. Thank you, Mississippi, Shochong bowed. Then he quickly left. 5 billion in research and development funds was something that Shochong had never dreamed of. After all, the Jogong family was generous. Compared to a self-employed person like Fan Xing, the abundance of funds made Shochong very satisfied. With such a huge research and development cost, he was one step closer to his big plan. Shochong's big plan originated from a meteorite wrapped in black light. This meteorite was still sealed in his research institute. Although it was only 0.5 g in size, it contained a huge amount of energy. Moreover, this small meteorite had a shocking amount of radiation and had the magical power to decompose spirit energy. If he could make good use of it. Maybe this small black meteorite could provide wireless energy. Just like the legendary, artificial sun. And this was Shochong's infinite energy big plan. He gave this black meteorite that was only the size of a grain of sand a very nice name, Eternity. The Jiugong family had spent 5 billion as research and development funds to find the dead fish-eyed boy. In fact, Shochong felt that it would only take a few tens of millions to develop such a treasure. As for the rest of the funds, he could invest them all in his big plan. Between the first party and the second party seemed to be the weaker party, but in fact, as long as they were good at calculation, they would not suffer too much. Especially when it came to research and development funds like this. As for how much to invest, it was up to Shochong. Even if it was valued in the end, it would not be a problem. After all, knowledge was priceless. However, for his infinite energy big plan, Shochong estimated that his research funds would at least be about 20 billion. Although he had received 5 billion in research and development funds from the Jiugong family, it was in fact far from enough. So, around that night, Shochong went to another man's house. That was Lotus Sun's villa. "Hello, I've heard a lot about you, Master Shochong." The young lady took the initiative to shake hands with Shochong. This made Shochong even more surprised. He purposely made himself look very sloppy. Many passers-by who saw him pinched their noses and rolled their eyes at him. When Shochong first arrived at Kya's house, he could clearly feel that Kya Ryoko was trying her best to restrain herself. At that time, he had secretly admired the cultivation of the eldest daughter of the Jiugong family. Unexpectedly, Lotus Sun's generous and warm handshake had given Shochong a whole new impact. It was said that the young lady of Huagua Water Curtain Group was generous and decent, and it was indeed true. "Please wait a moment, Miss Lotus Sunday." Seeing Lotus Sun so enthusiastic, Shochong naturally couldn't be impolite. He took out a spray and sprayed his hands, cleaning them a little before returning the grip. "I hope Miss Sun won't take offense. I just came out of the lab and am a little disheveled. It's okay, I understand." Lotus Sun smiled and nodded. "Grandmaster, please sit." Then, she snapped her fingers. Auntie Chiu, who had been waiting respectfully in the back for a long time, brought over the tea and pastries she had prepared. In fact, this meeting with Lotus Sun this time had been a last-minute decision by Shochong. After leaving the Jiugong family, he actually had a few investors he wanted to meet, all of whom were very interested in his new magic treasure. Although 20 billion yuan in research funding was an astronomical figure, as long as he found a few more clients, he would be able to scrape together the money. But what Shochong hadn't expected was that as soon as he stepped out of Shochong's house, this Miss Sun of Huagua Water Curtain Group would actually take the initiative to contact him. This was a big fish. One person was worth 100, or even 1,000, investors. For the sake of his research funding, Shochong naturally wouldn't miss out on this kind of client who had the ability to spend money. "I'm not someone who likes to beat around the bush. Today, I asked Grandmaster Shochong to come here. I wanted to ask classmate Jiugong what kind of magic treasure he wants you to invent." Dressed in a long blue muslin dress, Lotus Sun held a tray in one hand and a black teacup in the other. Her back was ramrod straight, showing off the figure and demeanor of a young Mississippi. Shochong was silent for a moment, then smiled bitterly. "This matter involves the client's secrets. You probably haven't signed the relevant contract yet. Since you haven't, the contract is just a piece of waste paper to wipe your ass. It's not a leak of secrets." Lotus Sun smiled. "But even so, I can't say." Shochong frowned, but still decided to keep silent. Although his goal was to raise funds, he still had his professional ethics. "Grandmaster, even if you don't say, I know." At that moment, Lotus Sun looked at Shochong and said, "Did Miss Jiugong Ryoko ask Grandmaster to create a magic treasure that can find dead fish-eyed boys?" Shochong's pupils instantly contracted at these words. "This." Shochong's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. He didn't know where on earth this eldest Miss Sun had gotten this information. He was even more amazed at the girl's ability to control intelligence. Of course, it was impossible for Lotus Sun to do this without alerting the power of her family. Jiugong was a dangerous person. So after Jiugong Ryoko left school, Lotus Sun immediately got in touch with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and asked him to use Battle's Sex Intelligence Network to monitor all of Jiugong Ryoko's movements. During this period of time, everything Jiugong Ryoko had said, done, and met, in fact, everything was in Battle's Sex Intelligence Network. In fact, there were already spies arranged by Battle's sect in the Jiugong family's villa. It seems that what I said was completely correct. Lotus Sun smiled faintly. I actually understand why Grandmaster doesn't want to say. But the leak of this information has nothing to do with Grandmaster. My purpose in looking for Grandmaster this time is very simple, and that is, I hope that Grandmaster can develop a magic treasure that can interfere with the other party's magic treasure. Miss Sun, I mean that Jiugong wants you to develop some magic treasure. You just need to develop a magic treasure that can restrain her in the opposite direction, said Lotus Sunday, developing it in the opposite direction. That's difficult, and it won't be cheap. Didn't she offer you 5 billion? At that moment, Lotus Sun raised her willowy eyebrows. Yes. Can Miss Sun also offer that kind of price? Shochong was curious. No. The girl put her black teacup back on the coffee table and just smiled. I'll pay triple. What did Miss Sun say? Shochong couldn't believe his ears. Triple? Now, I'm also working hard to learn how to keep a low profile, but sometimes I have to take action. Saying this, Lotus Sun smiled faintly. If Jiugong wants to play, then I'll play with her. Shochong wiped at his sweat. Now, he completely understood that this was simply a war between women. Women were really scary. Fortunately, he wasn't married yet. Chapter 1451. For Huaguo Water Curtain Group, which was as rich as a country, 15 billion wasn't a huge sum. Compared with the dream fund that Sunny Yuan used every year to speculate in stocks, invest, do charity, and help others realize their dreams, 15 billion was just a drop in the bucket. But to use such a huge sum of money, it still needed to be approved by the family. After Lotus Sun made this decision that night, the senior executives of the group, who hadn't discussed it yet, were all shaken and hurriedly got out of bed to find out what was going on. As far as they knew, this obedient and sensible girl had never used such a huge sum of money before. Several senior executives of the group promptly held a video conference to discuss how this huge sum of money would be used in their respective homes. Invest in a scientific research project? Or for that online celebrity scientist, Shochong? A senior executive of the group's board of directors frowned. This project is bound to lose money. In my opinion, that Shochong is a swindler. There are actually a lot of swindlers like him in the civil sciences, who specialize in inventing useless magic treasures to earn patent fees and attract attention. So it's this person, I know. Another person nodded and said, I remember that Fan Xing was seriously injured a while ago, and it seems to have something to do with this person. Although they designed a fully automatic escape apartment, they said that because of a lack of funds, they weren't responsible for the landing. As a result, Fan Xing directly turned into a human-shaped slime when he landed. I also remember this. The point is that even if we object, it's probably useless. The final decision will still be in President Sun's hands. Another board member sighed. They were just minor shareholders, although they had the right to object and participate in the meeting. But if Old Man Sun made the final decision, there really wouldn't be any room for negotiation. After all, Sunny Yuan still held the majority of the shares. So the question now was why this sensible and obedient young lady would have a relationship with this online celebrity scientist who was in the limelight. Many of the board members were puzzled no matter how they thought about it. At the moment, there were 16 board members in the video conference. When it came to their own interests, these people could also obtain some information by integrating their intelligence network. About half an hour later, someone received an anonymous intelligence message. I know, this matter seems to have something to do with the Jiugong family. The Jogong family? I remember that they just sent Jogong Ryoko, the symbol of the Jogong family's younger generation, over for an exchange and study, and specially chose number 60 high. That's right, this intelligence is very reasonable. Perhaps all the disputes this time were caused by the Jogong family. One of the directors said, according to my information, it's impossible. The young miss of the Jogong family first went to Shochong, and it's very likely that Lotus-san decided to marry him in a fit of pique. Is it because you're angry that you have the idea to invest? Many board members laughed loudly in the video. Everyone in the Sun family said that Lotus-san was well-behaved and had a unique vision, but this kind of youthful behavior inevitably made these old foxes on the board of directors laugh. She was a girl after all. In the future, he would inherit the family business and manage the entire group. Now, it seemed that he was still lacking a lot of experience. By the way, is the information reliable? 100% reliable, but as for the source of the information, allow me to keep you in suspense. Forget it, I don't care where you got the news. It was fine as long as it was reliable. Also, do you know why these two ladies are angry and invested in Shochong? The board member who jumped out to oppose at the beginning said. His surname was Fan, and his name was Fan Mingliang. In fact, Fan Xing was his nephew. Thus, Fan Mingliang had a natural aversion to Shochong. He wanted to find out as much as possible about the situation, because that way, he would have enough reason to prove that this investment was due to the two ladies being angry, and that they had ultimately blocked the group's funding. Given Old Man Sun's temper, there was a high chance that he would agree to block the funding in order to prevent the girls from getting a reputation as a spendthrift. And in fact, while the board members were on the video call, Old Man Sun was also digging into the details. The other side of the video call was still Chief Secretary Jiang Xiaoche. Old Master, 15 billion isn't a small number. Jiang Xiaoche's expression was very serious. What's the reaction of the board of directors? Sun Yuan asked. They think this is the result of Miss and the young miss of the Jogong family being angry. Shochong isn't reliable, investing in him will most likely result in a loss, Jiang Xiaoche said truthfully. I knew they would say that. Old Man Sun smiled. After all, Lotus-san was still young, so the old man had expected that her words wouldn't carry much weight. In Huagua Water Curtain Group, he was the one who truly controlled the entire cake and held the cake knife. But he had to admit that in the end, this cake didn't belong to him alone. It was also very important to consider the interests of the other board members. As far as I can remember, Rongrong has never used such a large amount of money before, Old Man Sun muttered as he pondered. On the contrary, he felt that this wasn't the result of a spendthrift. Using such a large amount of money, if it ended up incurring a loss, the consequences could be imagined. The board of directors would definitely make an issue out of it and obstruct his granddaughter from taking control of the family business in the future. His granddaughter was also being watched by countless people. He could decide on the allocation of funds. But whether or not she was qualified to inherit the business in the future really depended on her own ability. If she didn't have enough ability, then she could only entrust a third party to manage it. All these years, Old Man Sun had been carefully cultivating Lotus Sunday. Because Huagua Water Curtain Group had been single-handedly cultivated by him. After sowing, fertilizing, watering, and the baptism of time, it had now grown into a towering tree full of fruits. And the owner of this fruit tree, Old Man Sun, didn't want to transfer it to anyone else. Old Master, the board of directors is still waiting for a reply. I know. Old Man Sun smiled as he looked at the video. I've actually thought about it. I don't think Rongrong will do this kind of project if she's not confident in it. But if she incurs a loss, how about this? Go back and tell the board of directors. I'll sign a separate VAM with all the board members. At that moment, Old Man Sun's fingers were crossed and his chin was propped up in his hand. He narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at Jiang Xiaoche. VAM? Jiang Xiaoche was shocked. If Rongrong makes a profit from this investment, she will be the future heir of Huagua Water Curtain Group. If she incurs a loss, then according to the VAM, I'll choose another third party to represent her. This. Jiang Xiaoche's mouth fell open in surprise. He felt that this matter had blown up a little. Old master, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Jiang Xiaoche frowned. Xiaoche, I know. You didn't listen to my opinion at all on a lot of stocks and investments in the group, and instead made money. Old man's son smiled wryly. Sometimes, right and wrong are half and half recorded. Old man's son smiled. Although I've made a lot of wrong choices and deductions in my old age, I still believe in Rongrong. But I still believe in Rongrong. I believe that I can always make the right decision once. Old master. Jiang Xiaoche was moved, and there was some emotion in his eyes. Having a grandfather like this was really too enviable. Forget it, I'll talk to the board of directors directly. Help me cut the video over. Old man's son's words interrupted Jiang Xiaoche's thoughts. In front of the board members. Apart from the contents of the VAM. Chapter 1452. The deal with Lotus Sun was reached. Shouchong left the villa under the escort of a commissioner appointed by Lotus Sun, in order to prevent the Jiugong family spies from spying on them. Since Battle's sect could arrange spies in Jiugong's house, there was no guarantee that there wouldn't be spies in her villa. Thus, the girl immediately carried out the following plans. 1. Use Mysterious C's sword chi to form a sword barrier, so that no communication signal would be able to leave the villa. If there was a spy in the villa, not only would they be able to effectively block the signal, even the communication talisman would be intercepted by Mysterious C. 2. She asked Sun Yinger to help her memorize the shadows of everyone in the villa. If there was a new maid who came to work, Sun Yinger would immediately be able to catch the new shadow. Of course, this could also work if she specifically asked Auntie Chiu for information and then identified their faces one by one. But it would be too noisy, and it would be easy to give herself away. Finally, and also the third point, before Shouchong left the villa, Lotus Sun specially had the villa's maid help him take a shower and change into a clean new suit. The Jiugong family had spies in places outside the villa that Mysterious C's sword chi barrier couldn't cover. Even if there were spies, they probably wouldn't be able to recognize Shouchong at first glance. The decision above was decisive, swift and clear, and Shouchong gasped in amazement. On the way out of the Sun family's villa, Shouchong had already started to make plans in his heart. Right now, he had 2 clients in his hands. Both Lotus Sun and Jiugong Ryoko were clients. But after this comparison, it was already obvious which client was more powerful. Although it was true that this eldest miss of the Sun family had provided him with 15 billion yuan, it was clear that she wasn't someone who was easy to fool. Thus, Shouchong felt that it was necessary to be a little more serious about Lotus Sun's research and development of a magic treasure. At the very least, he had to develop a magic treasure that was sustainable and had the possibility of making a profit. After this wave, his 20 billion yuan research budget for the Grand Unlimited Energy Plan had just barely been realized. Lotus Sun had treated him well, mainly because this client father wasn't easy to fool, so Shouchong felt that he had to be extra serious about his research on Lotus Sunday. Of course, Shouchong's own intuition was also a factor. For some reason, Shouchong felt a chill down his spine as he talked to the eldest miss of the Sun family. On the other side, after finishing his homework in the study, Wang Ling had been observing the Jiugong family villa and Lotus Sun's movements. Of course, he didn't mean to peep at the 2 girls. He was just purely curious about what these 2 girls were up to this time. The results shocked Wang Ling greatly. For the sake of his pair of dead fish eyes, the 2 girls had invested a total of 20 billion in research funds. Although it wasn't his own money. But Wang Ling's first reaction was still heartache. 20 billion. How many crispy noodle snacks could it buy? Wang Ling remembered that there had been news a while back about the god of gamblers passing away. The legendary god of gamblers had left behind 500 billion yuan to his children. Someone did a simple calculation. What did 500 billion yuan of assets mean? If a person could live to be 100 years old, then this person would have to spend about 13. 69 million yuan every day from birth until he died of old age. Only then would this amount of money be completely consumed. Was this the life of the rich? Although Wang Ling's current life was ordinary and not poor, Father Wang's meager royalties weren't enough for him to squander 10 billion yuan with a wave of his hand. If you want to live a rich life, you can marry into our family. Wang Ying crossed her arms and smiled as she leaned against the door. Wang Ling still gave Wang Ying a deadpan look. Marrying into their family was out of the question. Whether or not he had money actually didn't matter much to Wang Ling. In any case, he just needed to have enough money to buy crispy noodle snacks. Money was a thing. It didn't matter to Wang Ling if he couldn't bring it with him when he died. But there were times when illusions were pretty interesting. For example, Wang Ling remembered fantasizing about it when he was a child. If everyone in the world gave him a dime, then wouldn't he become the richest person in the world? Ling Master, is this how you feel about this 20 billion yuan? Wang Ying looked at Wang Ling. Wang Ling was expressionless. He actually didn't quite understand what Wang Ying meant, but he knew that there was a hidden meaning behind her words. She did it all for. Wang Ying opened his mouth, but in the end, he couldn't continue. He knew that as long as the Tao Talisman seal existed, his Ling Master would always be like this when it came to matters of the heart. At this stage, this was something that was hard to change. He could only wait for the day when Wang Ling could truly control his power, and perhaps then he would understand. But when that time really came, perhaps those feelings that had been suppressed in his heart would instantly erupt like a geyser. Wang Ying rubbed his chin as he thought about what might happen in the future. He was instantly very curious. After sending Shouchong off without a hitch, Lotus Sun finally started to finish the school homework. Because of the Rubik's Cube collection a few days ago, the girl had to wake up early to do her homework. But that wasn't necessary now. The follow-up Rubik's Cube collection had already been suspended because it was said to be very risky. So, was Wang Ling actually still thinking about her? Thinking this, she was in a great mood. She sorted out the evening's homework and opened her pencil case. Although there were a lot of test papers, these exercises weren't difficult for the girl. If she settled down, she could finish one in 10 minutes. Thanks to the teacher's sea of questions, many of the multiple-choice questions had almost become directional thinking. After doing this many times, she didn't even need to review the questions. She just needed to look at the options to know where the answer was. She was feeling for a pen in her pencil case when a white rabbit creamy candy suddenly caught the girl's attention. Lotus Sun was startled. Question mark. How could there be candy in her pencil case? Sun Yinger looked like she was watching a show from behind. She resisted the urge to spoil the story, and observed the girl's reaction when she saw the candy. At that moment, the girl picked up the white rabbit creamy candy and sniffed it carefully. This candy seems to have classmate Wang Ling's scent. What the hell? You can even smell it. Sun Yinger was startled. You already knew? Lotus Sun was astonished. That's right, but seeing that you were so focused on dealing with Jiao Gong's mistress, I didn't warn you, and wanted you to discover it yourself. I didn't expect your sense of smell to be so strong. Sun Yinger was taken aback. Classmate Wang Ling always had a very light scent of soap on him. Lotus Sun was a little shy. Also, don't talk about classmate Jiao Gong like that. Fine, after all, it hasn't been determined yet. Sun Yinger nodded and then looked at Lotus Sun curiously. How about it, do you want to try it? Ling Jinren's candy has been enchanted and has a special effect. Will it expire? Of course it won't if it's been enchanted. Then I have to keep it, Lotus Sun said with a smile. There was only one candy. It would be too much of a pity to eat it just like that. Sun Yinger spread her hands helplessly. I knew you couldn't bear to do it. Do you still want to insure it? Lotus Sun's eyes lit up at this. Although you usually shoot your mouth off, you've finally brought up a great idea. Sun Yinger, Lotus Sun thought for a moment. I still have some pocket money left this month, so I'll buy insurance with what's left. When I get my pocket money next month, I'll renew the insurance. Sun Yinger, so how much pocket money do you have each month? Lotus Sun, not much, just 1 billion. Sun Yinger. Chapter 1453. Although Lotus Sun had paid for it herself, it was still Jiang Xiaoche who had taken care of it. Jiang Xiaoche had just signed the VAM with the board of directors and settled the 15 billion yuan matter. When he immediately contacted the insurance company for Lotus Sun, he felt as if he was a tool man. But he didn't feel annoyed at all. Being asked to do something by Lotus Sun made him feel like he was being relied on. Very good. By the time he was done with everything, it was already close to 10 in the evening. Only then did Jiang Xiaoche remember that he had a dinner appointment with Jiang Yingying. He had booked the hotel beforehand. Because of the board of directors matter, he had texted Jiang Yingying and told her to wait in the hotel for a while. In the meantime, she could go to a spa or something. Of course, Jiang Xiaoche would be the one paying for it. Jiang Yingying was a shrewd girl. The cost of this hotel was so high that she couldn't afford it with her allowance. She was mainly worried that Jiang Xiaoche would stand her up, so Jiang Yingying had been very cautious from beginning to end in the hotel restaurant. Just when she thought that Jiang Xiaoche had really stood her up, in the distance, a tall young man with a straight nose and a pair of vintage glasses walked over to her. He pulled out a chair in front of her and sat down. "Sorry, I'm late. I had a last-minute mission." At first sight of Jiang Xiaoche, Jiang Yingying's impression was that this Che in front of her was pretty much the same as the image she had imagined. He wasn't as handsome as she had imagined, but his looks were pleasing to the eye. "It's fine." Seeing that Jiang Xiaoche had arrived without a hitch, Jiang Yingying secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she didn't have to worry about her wallet anymore. "You didn't go to a spa?" No. Jiang Yingying blushed. She felt that if Jiang Xiaoche found out that she hadn't gone because she was afraid of being stood up, he would probably laugh at her. "Ha ha ha, it's fine. It's normal for a girl to be careful when she's out." Jiang Xiaoche smiled and smoothed things over. Then, he picked up the tablet on the table and started to order. "Is there anything you don't eat?" "Spicy, I can't really eat much," said Jiang Yingying. "Perfect, I don't like spicy food either." Jiang Yingying nodded and started to order at lightning speed. He was very familiar with the menu of this hotel. The restaurant in the hotel had been closed for the day, but the chefs in the kitchen hadn't gotten off work yet. That was because this hotel was owned by Jiang Xiaoche himself. Did Big Brother Archer run into another case? Jiang Yingying asked curiously while they were ordering. Earlier, Jiang Xiaoche had told her that he was a detective. Lying to girls was something that Jiang Xiaoche often did. Most importantly, he had almost never made a mistake. He could clearly remember the identity and story that he had casually made up, as well as the girl that corresponded to this identity and background. Yes, this is indeed a very difficult case. In order to protect a pretty boy, a rich woman embezzled 15 billion from public funds. Therefore, he answered almost instantly, which naturally made people think that he was a real detective. 15 billion. Jiang Yingying was astonished. Although she was the granddaughter of the 10 generals, Marshal Jiang had always been incorruptible. Jiang Yingying had never heard of such a huge figure. Not only that, but she also plans to spend 1 billion on insurance for the pretty boy's gift, Jiang Xiaoche said. "What gift? Diamond ring? Jewels?" Jiang Yingying asked. "A milk candy," Jiang Xiaoche said. "Is that necessary? That's such a waste of money." Jiang Yingying despised this kind of evil capitalist behavior. "That's right. I think it's a waste too," Jiang Xiaoche also said. He looked at Jiang Yingying and smiled. "So, should we discuss pretending to be a couple this weekend?" "Okay." For some reason, Jiang Yingying suddenly felt her heart beat faster. Perhaps it was because of the current atmosphere, or perhaps it was because the Jiang Xiaoche before him was gentler than he had imagined. This is the detailed list of pretending to be a couple. You can choose the ones you like. In addition, I'll be responsible for all the expenses involved. Jiang Shaoqi pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, took out the list that he had prepared beforehand from his chest pocket, and handed it to Jiang Yingying. The title of the list of pretending to be a couple 1, holding hands 2, upgraded version of holding hands, all 10 fingers clasped tightly, 3, hug 4, upgraded version of hug, backward approach. When Jiang Yingying saw the 4th item, she felt terrible. Backward? What's backward approach? It's hugging you from behind. Doesn't that make us look more like a couple? It makes us look more intimate, Jiang Shaoqi explained. And then, 5, shopping for clothes together. 6, shopping together, go to the fitting room together. 7, eating together. 8, eating together, feed each other in front of everyone. 9, kissing. 10, kissing together, French-style deep kiss. Jiang Yingying. On Friday, December 11th, when Wang Ling went to school again in the morning, he found that the old pancake grandpa's pancake stall at the entrance had already become a large flagship store. There were even employees to help out. Although Kyuko Ryoko was a troublesome person, she was essentially a tsundere. But judging from this incident, she was a woman of her word, and actually wasn't a bad person. And most importantly, this girl also liked to eat crispy noodle snacks. Wang Ling felt that the strategy to deal with Kyuko Ryoko didn't necessarily have to be the same as before, physically erasing her memories or something. It didn't seem bad if he could turn her into an ally. This was the first day that the flagship pancake store had opened, and the people who came to buy the pancakes were basically regular customers. Many of the number 60 high alumni were astonished by the change overnight. The happiest person was naturally the grandpa of the pancake stall. Yo! Classmate Wang Ling. Come quickly. Today's pancakes are all on me. After Wang Ling walked over, the grandpa pulled him aside and said in a low voice, I really have to thank classmate Wang Ling this time. The school said that you're a mascot, and it's true. When you came to buy pancakes yesterday, you instantly helped me attract an angel investment. Wang Ling. Actually, this had nothing to do with him at all. The grandpa, if you want to eat pancakes in the future, just say the word. I can still afford to treat you to one pancake. It's free. Thanks, don't thank me, we're friends. The grandpa nudged Wang Ling lightly with his elbow, and then said, Wang Ling, there's something else I want to talk to you about. Wang Ling, ? Actually, I want to talk to that classmate Kyuko. Although classmate Kyuko helped me open the store, it seems that she has a strange request. The grandpa said, she wants me to help her record those boys with dead fish eyes. Wang Ling. Chapter 1454. For the first time, Wang Ling realized how valuable his dead fish eyes were. When he had been born back then, Mother Wang, who had been keen on having double eyelids, had even despised them. If it weren't for the fact that a plastic surgeon's knife couldn't cut through his eyelids at all, Mother Wang would have already forcibly made him a double eyelid long ago. But as she grew up, Mother Wang's obsession with double eyelids gradually dissipated. After all, he was his own son. Since he was her biological son, the more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Right now, Kamiya Ryoko and Lotus Sun had actually made such a big fuss over his eyes. Putting aside Lotus Sun's 15 billion, just 9 palaces alone was already a huge investment. He spent a huge sum of money to invest in defense and helped the old man build a pancake flagship store to monitor the situation. He actually thought of letting Grandpa Chen monitor him at the school gate. This was quite a good move. After that, there would probably be all sorts of other operations. Fortunately, Wang Ling had always had a good relationship with the old man. Uncle Chen naturally wouldn't betray Wang Ling so easily. There was a reason behind this. It was said that Uncle Chen's grandson also had dead fish eyes, but he died young because of a serious illness in his early years. So every time Uncle Chen saw Wang Ling, he felt like he was seeing his own grandson. After half a semester of familiarity, the relationship between them naturally became closer. Wang Ling, do you think this girl has taken a fancy to you? Uncle Chen suddenly said at that moment. Wang Ling felt that the system's idea was very dangerous. It was time to make use of his disciple. As his chief tool, no, to be precise, he was his chief disciple. This was the moment when Ajua's role was to block arrows. Jiao Gong's goal was different from Jiang Yingying's. The main reason was to find him and question him face to face, so as to expose the fact that Ajua had taken the blame for him back then. But there was no way Wang Ling would let Kamiya Yoshiko get away with this. In the general administration's office, Ajua's expression was unusually calm after receiving Wang Ling's message. After his meeting with Ryoko Kumiya in the headmaster's office yesterday, Ajua knew that this eldest miss would definitely stir up even more trouble. Naturally, Ajua already had a plan to deal with the menacing Ryoko Kumiya. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was sitting on one side in the office. This time, he had come to Ajua's office to discuss the situation. After all, Ajua still had work to do. For the general administration of 100 schools to go to the battle sect every day, it seemed a little too unprofessional. It was almost time for the Alliance of 10,000 Schools leader election, and the closer it was to this juncture, the more Ajua had to be careful. The battle sect was full of brothers, so it didn't really matter who joined whose sect. Grenade-throwing senior immortal was actually a very casual person. As a qualified measurement of combat strength, although he was the leader of a sect, he did not put on any airs. He still treated everyone as his equal brothers and friends. Sometimes, people would change after they reached a high position. But grenade-throwing didn't. This was also one of the reasons why Wang Ling had been willing to become friends with him back then. Brother Zhua, the situation is basically clear. Sitting in a mahogany armchair, grenade-throwing senior immortal said, according to the spy battle sect sent to the Jiugong family, the Jiugong family is targeting you this time for revenge and to wipe out this humiliation. Back then, the Jiugong family used their advanced demon-slaying technology to detect the fluctuations of the gate between worlds from a distance. That is to say, they already had their eyes on Dog. Ajua asked, rubbing his chin. Brother Zhua, you're right. Grenade-throwing senior immortal nodded. Lying on the ground in silence, Loopy Toad heaved a sigh. It had been too difficult back then, it had really been like there were wolves in front and tigers behind. Because of Ajua's invitation, it had rushed over to Ajua's place after Wang Ling had left for school. So, what's your plan now? After taking some time to understand the whole story, Loopy Toad looked at Ajua and said, You're not going to confront me with that girl, are you? Actually, I've thought about this before, but as the saying goes, if you're out to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. Even if you confront her, as long as that girl does a little research on the relationship between you, me, and Battle Sect, she'll quickly find out that we're in cahoots. She might not believe it, Ajua said. That's true. Loopy Toad nodded. It had heard about the first time Ajua and Jiugong Ryoko had met. In terms of description, this young lady indeed wasn't someone who could be easily fooled. We absolutely can't let this matter get out. Shifu and Shifu are very distressed about this. Ajua smiled bitterly. So this time, I need Senior Immortal and Brother Dog's help. Do you have any specific requirements? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Recreate the scene back then. Ajua raised his eyes and looked at the two of them with a serious expression. Recreating the scene back then isn't difficult, but the problem is. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said. Currently, Battle Sect's large-scale film and television base was about to be built. In order to promote the sect, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal planned to look for core members of the sect to shoot a big movie with Battle Sect as the theme. And now, the film and television base could be put to use right away. Furthermore, unlike those special features, all the scenes could be perfectly reconstructed in a 1:1 ratio. When Loopy Toad had been rewarded back then, an area had directly been reduced to ruins, and a lot of buildings had been blown up. Modern cultivators could directly achieve these scenes by combining magic with magic treasures, and didn't need post-production special effects at all. Since they wanted to make it look real, naturally, they had to blow up real things. As for the gate between worlds, that was even more convenient. Because the creator of the gate was Immortal Jinyuan, who was now a core member of Battle Sect. None of this was a problem. But the point was, I know what Senior Immortal wants to say. At that moment, Audjwa said, the demon world and Earth are currently on friendly terms. Although it's all an act for that girl, it wouldn't be good if this got out. Audjwa had already thought of this. In essence, this was an act to deceive Ryoko Q. But this matter had to be kept top secret. If it was accidentally leaked, some media with ulterior motives might maliciously speculate and publicize it, and it was very likely that the relationship between the two worlds would deteriorate again. I understand that. You didn't call me over to make me an actor, did you? Loopy Toad raised its dog head and stared at Audjwa, feeling that it had already smelled something. Dogs are man's best friends, how could I abuse them? Audjwa spread his hands and said. Loopy Toad, Audjwa, what I'm thinking is, do you have any relatives who are big enough to help out with the acting? I'll have to ask. Loopy Toad said. For Loopy Toad. It actually wasn't difficult to find an actor. Especially since this matter was related to the Lord, it was even easier to deal with. If those toads in the clan knew that Loopy Toad was working for Wang Ling, they would probably fight to the death to get the role. Elsewhere, during the morning self-study period, Teacher Pan led Jiang Yingying into the classroom. Wang Ling couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat as he had a very bad feeling. Old Pan solemnly introduced Jiang Yingying to the whole class. Students, Student Jiang Yingying is a new transfer student. She's also a top student. I hope you'll learn from her. Super Chen and Hero Gua had already found out about Jiang Yingying's arrival at school after their meeting in the canteen on Wednesday. Then, news of Jiang Yingying's arrival had spread throughout the class. It was just that Hero Gua and the others hadn't expected Jiang Yingying to actually join their class. It's your first time here. Student Jiang, you can directly tell me where you want to sit. Old Pan smiled. The girl in front of her was not only a top student, but also the granddaughter of one of the 10 generals, Marshal Jiang. Naturally, it was within Old Pan's power to choose a seat. Then, teacher, can I sit in the last row by the window? Jiang Yingying smiled. You want to sit behind student Wang Ling? Teacher Pan was a little astonished at this choice, and she whispered in Jiang Yingying's ear, don't blame me for not warning you, student Wang Ling is an enigma. If you sit behind him, I'm worried that you'll also become autistic. I won't, teacher. Jiang Yingying said, I'm tall, and I'm afraid I'll block your line of sight if I sit in the front, so I'll sit in the back. Alright, student Jiang, but I need to check if I can sit in the last row, Teacher Pan said. You still need to check. Jiang Yingying was startled. It's like this, student Jiang, after the school renovation, all the desks and chairs were made of the best immortal wood. Each set of desks and chairs has a 6-digit number on them. After you sit down, the desks and chairs are bound to you, and the number on them will be your student number for the next few years. Jiang Yingying, is there something special about the numbers? That's right. Teacher Pan nodded. These numbers are based on the order in which each set of desks and chairs was produced. Jiang Yingying, as she explained, Teacher Pan used her authority as a teacher in charge to check the information on this set of desks and chairs on her tablet. Then, she sighed. I'm very sorry, student Jiang, I'm afraid you'll have to choose another seat. Why? Jiang Yingying didn't understand. It's like this, according to the order in which they were produced, the number you chose is 006666. This is a beautiful number, and you'll need to pay extra for it. Jiang Yingying turned pale with shock. She had come to school to choose a seat, and there was actually a bloody beautiful number. Which little genius had come up with this idea? Just at that moment, Lotus Sun, who was in the crowd, inadvertently smiled. The girl's lips curled up slightly, her expression full of certainty. Everything was under her control. Chapter 1455. After number 60 high school reopened, she had expected a transfer student to join them. So the pretty account settings weren't just for Jiang Yingying, but to prevent other people, especially other girls, from getting close to Wang Ling. Wang Ling had always been in the second to last row by the window. Hero Guo was sitting in the corridor on the right, and Super Chen was sitting in front of him. Then, all that was left was to guard against the seats behind him. It was just that she had never thought that the plan she had come up with back then would actually be put to use today. On the dais, Jiang Yingying looked a little anxious. "Teacher, does it mean that I just have to pay for it?" Old Pan was a little surprised at this answer. "Classmate Jiang, do you mean that you want to buy it?" The pretty account seats weren't cheap. She knew that Jiang Yingying had always been a thrifty girl, and had always carried out Marshal Jiang's style of being content with poverty. Buying pretty accounts really didn't seem like something Jiang Yingying would do. "I'll buy it no matter how much it costs." Classmate Jiang, you, as the teacher in charge, after teaching for so many years, Old Pan had seen all kinds of students. No matter what kind of tricks a student had up their sleeves, they could hardly hide from her. After seeing Jiang Yingying's obsession with the last seat by the window, Teacher Pan almost instantly understood. She turned her gaze to the mascot in the second to last row by the window, who was pretending to look out the window in an attempt to hide his embarrassment. Could it be that she admires classmate Wang Ling? "He's only just started school, surely it can't be," Teacher Pan muttered in her heart. To be honest, she also didn't know why Wang Ling was so popular with women. He was clearly a man of few words, but it just so happened that he was especially popular with the girls. Could it be because of the sense of mystery that came with his reticence? Old Pan really couldn't understand the taste of young people nowadays. But she didn't dare speculate about the relationship between Jiang Yingying and Wang Ling. Although number 60 high school's school rules didn't restrict students from falling in love, as a traditional and conservative teacher, Old Pan still did her best to put an end to puppy love in class. As long as she found the slightest sign of trouble, she would immediately strangle him in the cradle. In fact, Jiang Yingying was originally assigned to another class. However, due to her outstanding performance, she had the intention to transfer to Class 3. In the end, she joined Wang Ling's class. He had picked up a top student who could pull his grades down. What if puppy love caused his grades to drop? What should he do? At that moment, Old Pan glanced at the quotes displayed on her tablet. "The price of this set of desks and chairs is 50,000 yuan. To be honest, this was not a price that an ordinary student could afford. After some thought, Old Pan looked at Jiang Yingying seriously and asked, "Classmate Jiang, are you sure you want to buy it?" "I'm sure." The stubborn girl still refused to give up this opportunity. Although she had never been a spendthrift, she still had some personal savings. During the holidays, the elders who visited Marshal Jiang would always give her red packets as a token of appreciation. However, they were afraid that they would get into trouble if the red packets were too big, so the amount of the red packets were not very big. Hundreds of years of accumulation, Jiang Yingying currently had about 90,000 yuan in her savings. She felt that was more than enough to buy a seat. Then, "Classmate Jiang, would you like to pay with a card or?" Old Pan looked at Jiang Yingying with a smile. 500,000. Jiang Yingying was stupefied. Everyone in class was in an uproar. Even Lotus Sun was in an uproar. She had actually added an extra zero to the total amount. This was outrageous. But very quickly, the clever girl reacted. Old Pan was probably putting an end to puppy love. Furthermore, Lotus Sun was well aware of this. If someone found out about this, they would definitely run out and question her. "Then what's going on between you and Wang Ling?" Lotus Sun had already prepared an answer for this. Classmate Wang Ling was like a block of wood. So how could this be called puppy love? It was clearly a crush and an unrequited love. Liking someone was really too hard. On the dais, Old Pan had thought that Jiang Yingying would already be thinking of giving up after she had lied about the price. However, she never expected that this girl's temper would be even more stubborn than she had imagined. "That teacher. Can you wait for me? I can buy it. But I need to raise some money." For Jiang Yingying, 500,000 was a huge sum of money, and it was unrealistic to raise it in a short period of time. So she thought of borrowing it. Who could she borrow it from? Jiang Xiaoche was in fact a ready-made target. Jiang Yingying felt like she had gone crazy. she had actually run off to borrow money from someone she had only met once. Teacher Pan pulled Jiang Yingying back. "Classmate Jiang, please reconsider. I don't think you need to chase after a pretty seat. Because it's not worth it at all. I know why you insist on sitting in that seat. I'm afraid it's because classmate Wang Ling is a mascot." Jiang Yingying, Wang Ling knew that old Pan was definitely saying this on purpose. She was giving Jiang Yingying a way out of this embarrassing situation. But at that moment, the girl on the dais was so confused that she couldn't hear anything at all. Her mind was filled with a classic quote from a live streamer on some treasure trove, "Oh my god. Buy it." It was obvious that Jiang Yingying couldn't calm down at that moment. "Teacher, I still want to." "Very well, classmate Jiang. Since you want to buy it, I won't stop you." Old Pan let go of Jiang Yingying's hand. "But before you buy the pretty seat, I have to read out a few things to take note of." This wasn't something old Pan had added on at the last minute, but had been there all along. She was playing hard to get. In any case, Jiang Yingying wouldn't listen now, so she might as well read out the rules of the pretty seat to her. Maybe she would calm down. There are other things to take note of. Jiang Yingying was puzzled. "Yes." Old Pan nodded and said, 1. After you pay, you'll automatically get the right to use the pretty seat for a year. It's not permanent." Jiang Yingying was startled. Old Pan didn't answer Jiang Yingying, but directly read out the second rule. 2. If you want the right to use it permanently, you must first apply for a pretty seat membership card. The membership fee is 10,000 yuan per year. If automatic renewal is enabled, the annual fee is 9,500 yuan. Note, if you pay the membership fee for 3 years before graduation, the pretty seat can be mailed home by the school for permanent use. Alternatively, the seat owner can place it in the school history museum and carve his or her name on the back of the seat. 3. If you have the pretty seat and your membership, the following privileges will be unlocked. 1. The teacher in charge will call you for morning service every day. 2. The advance notification service before contacting your parents. 3. Additional free tutoring service. 4. If you are subjected to violence on campus, you can ask the sports team teacher to beat you up at any time. Note, gold membership and diamond membership privileges will also be introduced in the future. Please look forward to them. 4. The first time you buy a pretty seat, you will receive 1 ton of Immortal Ridge secret scroll for free. Old Pan had just read out the 4th rule when Jiang Yingying's face was already full of despair. "Teacher. I won't buy it, all right." Teacher Pan smiled in satisfaction. "Then you can sit on the side near the door, behind student Gu Xuanji." "Can't I sit behind student Hero Gua? That's also a pretty seat." Chapter 1456. It was clear that Jiang Yingying had been arranged. At the same time, she also realized how frightening Lotus Sun was, but Jiang Yingying had never been someone who gave up easily. She didn't give up. If she couldn't sit behind Wang Ling, then there was only one last option left. After class, Jiang Yingying pulled Hero Gua aside. "Classmate Jiang, do you mean to change seats?" "Oh my. Don't be so formal, just call me Yingying." Jiang Yingying patted Hero Gua on the shoulder and looked at him expectantly. During the first lesson, Jiang Yingying had been planning this. No boy would refuse a cute girl's request, right? But to Jiang Yingying's surprise, Hero Gua almost didn't even think about it before he refused her. "Then you're wrong, Yingying. As one of Wang Ling's best buddies, I won't give up my seat so easily." Nonsense, of course he wouldn't give up his seat. Boss Sun had just given them the #1 account in the entire public citizen connection. How could he betray him like that? Moreover, Boss Sun had actually already made arrangements with them before school started. As long as he and Super Chin didn't give up their seats, they would be sponsored an extra 10,000 yuan for the game every month, but for Hero Gua and Super Chin, this was already quite a lot. It would be a waste not to take advantage of this. 10,000 yuan was nothing to Lotus Sun, it was just spare change. But considering that excessive spending in the game could make people mentally dispirited, the girl hadn't given them much, and had only done it as a gesture of goodwill. Furthermore, she had made an agreement with them that if their grades were at the bottom one day, the sponsorship would be cancelled. Previously, Hero Gua and Super Chin hadn't really understood the girl's actions. But now, they completely understood. After school that day, Super Chin and Hero Gua left together. When Hero Gua mentioned Jiang Yingying, Super Chin had a strong reaction. Sure enough, she came to look for you. She also came to look for me. Everything was within Boss Sun's expectations. Super Chin wiped at his sweat. He was instantly glad that he hadn't gotten together with her, otherwise he really wouldn't have been able to handle it. As for a girlfriend, it was better to find a naive and sweet girl. Boss Sun is very far-sighted, he's indeed amazing. Hero Gua nodded. Tomorrow is Saturday, the day we agreed to go to Old Street. We'll have to figure out a way to slip away. I remember there's an in-style internet cafe on the Old Street. It's pretty good. I understand. Super Chin nodded, then rubbed his chin. There are quite a few campus belles among the transfer students this time. Jiang Yingying, and a foreign girl called Ryoko Kuya. Why do I feel like she's also here for Wang Ling? Recently, they had been feeling that the atmosphere in the school was not right. As expected, the main reason for the strange atmosphere was the increase of this strange azure field. At this point, the two old bachelors couldn't help but sigh in their hearts, a bunch of fresh flowers stuck on a log. At that moment, Hero Gua looked at Super Chin. By the way, have you ever been in love? Super Chin, just once. The girl even kissed me. Hero Gua, when did this happen? Middle school? Super Chin, kindergarten class. Hero Gua was startled. That counts as F***king love? Super Chin, actually, there were a few more after that, from primary school to middle school. I don't know if they were in love or not. What about you? Mother and fetus solo. Hero Gua spread his hands and smiled. Same as the author of Immortal King. When Wang Ling got home that night, he remembered that tomorrow was the day they had agreed to go to Old Street. Jiang Yingying's scorching gaze had been a pain in the ass today. Fortunately, there were quite a few of them in the classroom. Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan had been secretly helping him avoid Jiang Yingying's gaze. As for Lotus Sun, she had naturally done him a big favor because of the beautiful seat. Since he had helped, he naturally had to return the favor. This was the Wang family's etiquette. Of course, the present was still that enchanted white rabbit creamy candy. Because Wang Ling saw that the white rabbit creamy candy which had been in Lotus Sun's pencil case earlier was already gone. He didn't need to deliberately deduce it to know that the girl definitely hadn't eaten it, maybe she had kept it. He didn't quite understand what the girl meant by this. It was just a candy. So this time, Wang Ling gave her two. He didn't believe that Lotus Sun would be like a hamster and keep all the candies. Old Street of Cultivation Culture. Before dinner, Wang Ling specially went online to do some research. This was his first time going to this old street, so it was necessary to do some homework in advance. That way, he could avoid some minefields. But he would be going with a lot of people tomorrow, including Li Yuyue, Hero Gua and Super Chin. All three of them were chatterbox veterans. The atmosphere shouldn't be too awkward. Ling Ling, I heard that you're going to Old Street of Cultivation Culture with your classmates tomorrow? At that moment, Father Wang, who was sitting on the sofa, put down the newspaper and glanced at Wang Ling. Wang Ling nodded. He didn't know where Father Wang had gotten this information, but he was actually a little curious. After going to the Shao family compound with Lotus Sun the last time, he was wary of Father and Mother Wang's reaction when they saw him go out with a girl. Other parents put an end to puppy love, but these two buffoons didn't care at all. Because it was said that when Father and Mother Wang were young, they were also famous for puppy love. Then, Father Wang continued to ask, how many girls are there? Is there Miss Lotus Sun? Sure enough. He still asked. He knew it. Forget it, I know even if you don't tell me. Father Wang chuckled. I just wanted to tell you that if you don't make it back in time tonight, you don't have to. Wang Ling, ? He could teleport. If he wanted to leave, who could stop him? There's clearly a girl in front of you, but you still want to use your ability to force your way back. This is very impolite for a straight man. People will gossip about you. After saying this, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Father Wang didn't have the ability to read minds, but when it came to emotions, he was like an expert. What was Wang Ling thinking? He seemed to know everything. Father Wang smiled. When it's time to part ways, a boy should take the initiative and come back after sending the girls home safely. That's the right thing to do. Okay. Wang Ling nodded. There was nothing he could do. He was a good boy. He was used to being obedient, and it was hard for him to disobey his father's orders. Of course, he was mainly worried that Father Wang would find an excuse to deduct his allowance again. Oh, by the way, Ling Ling, there's something else I want to tell you. At that moment, Father Wang added, the owners of the Hanfu shops on the ancient cultivation cultural street are all my fans. I've already greeted them. Hanfu, Wang Ling thought for a bit. He wondered if it would be strange for him to wear Hanfu. Since you're going to play with your classmates, you should blend in with the group. The Hanfu there is pretty good, you can try it out. Father Wang said, you don't need to greet them. When you get to the shops, the owners will naturally recognize you. Wang Ling, ? Father Wang, after all, there are very few dead fish eyes with delicate features like yours. Wang Ling. Chapter 1457. The tour of the Cultivation Culture Street was originally scheduled for 2 days. Since they would be together on Saturday and Sunday, there would be plenty of time. Because there were many attractions in the old street, 1 day wasn't enough. In any case, the hotels in the old street were all owned by the Huaguo Water Curtain Group, so their stays were free. He could even arrange a presidential suite for each of them. But considering that she had made an agreement with Wang Ling before, she hadn't said whether it would be 1 or 2 days. If he made the decision just like that, it might not be good. Therefore, although she made a 2-day plan, she still concentrated the main attractions on the first day. In a chat group called Ancient Street Operation Assistance Team, a few people were in the middle of a group video call. So, that's the basic situation. Does anyone have any other questions? If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask. Lotus Sun looked at Li Yuyue, Hirogwa, and Super Chin. Yes. Hirogwa raised his hand. Speak. Lotus Sun looked at her. Boss clearly made a plan for 2 days. Does he want us to put on an act and forcefully stay in the old street for 1 night? So that you and that kid Wang Ling can stay in the hotel together? I don't think so, the young girl argued and then quickly fanned her burning face. This is too deliberate. Also, classmate Wang Ling. The words were on the tip of her tongue, but in the end, she couldn't continue. She had wanted to say that Wang Ling could read minds. How could their clumsy acting skills fool Wang Ling's eyes? But in reality, this matter was strictly confidential. In this chat group, only he knew the truth. At this moment, the young girl realized that she had almost spilled the beans, and her heart was filled with regret. It seemed that she had to be more careful in the future. She couldn't lose her composure just because she heard some embarrassing words. She followed along with the conversation. At that moment, Hirogwa saw the girl on the screen blush and fall silent, and he was puzzled. Wang Ling? What happened to Wang Ling? Super Chin, are you going to say that Wang Ling can tell that we're acting? Lotus Sun. Super Chin, I don't think you need to worry about acting. Boss Sunday, doesn't Uncle Gua have a film studio at home? Lingzi had also been there before. During the summer vacation, Lao Gua and I would go there from time to act as extras. My acting skills have long been honed. Lotus Sun, no, that's too risky, Then, as long as you can't tell it's fake, it's fine, right? Then I understand. Hiro Gwa chuckled. A mysterious expression appeared on his face. You understand again, yeah. They all understood. Also, does Boss Sun have any designated hotels? I already said that I didn't book a hotel. Classmate Wang Ling probably doesn't want to stay there for another day. You don't need a hotel? Isn't that in the open? The boss's first time was so exciting. I understand now. No. You don't understand. No, boss, I understand. Everyone understands. On the other hand, Jiang Yingying once again returned to the hotel she went to before. This time, Jiang Xiaoche arrived early in the morning and ordered a table full of different dishes waiting for her. She didn't have time to go home, so she came over right after class in her school uniform. Jiang Xiaoche smiled when he saw Jiang Yingying. His voice was unusually gentle. You must be hungry. Hurry up and eat. Thank you, Brother Archer. Jiang Yingying nodded slightly, then took off her school uniform jacket and hung it on one side. The girl was wearing a pure white short-sleeved shirt with number 60 high school emblem logo on the chest. However, due to the internal force, the logo looked slightly deformed. At first, Jiang Xiaoche had noticed that Jiang Yingying and Lotus Sun looked a little alike, but when he saw the girl's figure, he instantly noticed the difference. She had developed too well. If Lotus Sun's development was like a newly made hunting knife, then Jiang Yingying was like a three-piece set. Although she was still a ways off from the six-god set, she was already very outstanding at this age. But Jiang Xiaoche didn't dare look too long, and only stole glances. He was afraid that the girl would notice his expression and leave a wretched impression. Jiang Yingying picked up a mouthful of lettuce and chewed it a few times, but she didn't look very happy. What's wrong? Did something unpleasant happen on your first day of school? Jiang Xiaoche looked at Jiang Yingying. I think they're all bullying me. Jiang Yingying's eyes were glistening with tears as she poured out everything that had happened with the beautiful seats. Don't cry. Jiang Xiaoche took out a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. The girl took it and wiped her snot and tears. Brother Archer, do you have a way for me to sit next to classmate Wang Ling? It's a little difficult, mainly because I'm not very familiar with this school. Jiang Xiaoche sweated profusely. Just from listening to Jiang Yingying's description, he knew that this was the doing of that eldest miss of their family. With eldest miss around, how could he dare intervene? Then can I? Jiang Yingying looked at Jiang Xiaoche with hope in her eyes. I know what you mean. Are you saying that you want me to lend you money? Jiang Xiaoche smiled and said, sure, but the premise is that you have to be my real girlfriend. Ah, Jiang Yingying hadn't expected Jiang Xiaoche to actually say that, and her little face instantly burned. Then forget it. Jiang Xiaoche wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Did he really not have the least bit of charm? After thinking for a bit, Jiang Xiaoche decided to take a different approach. Or, let's make a bet. For example, if you like that Wang Ling, you can first confirm whether he likes you. How? How do I confirm it? That's your problem. I can help you buy a seat. The deadline is the last final exam of your senior year. If you can move Wang Ling, I'll give you my blessing. But if you can't, you have to be my wife. That's the bet. Looking at Jiang Yingying, he felt that the conditions he had proposed were very generous. However, even with such a condition, the young girl still flatly refused. No. Absolutely not. Being a wife or whatever, that's too ridiculous. And even if I agree, my grandpa might not agree. I can talk to your grandpa. That's impossible. If my grandpa finds out that I spend all my energy on boys, he'll definitely be angry. He'll hit you? No. Grandpa has always been good to me. He's a stubborn person. Besides, he's always been diligent and thrifty, so bribery doesn't work on him. So your grandpa is? Jiang Xiaoche frowned. Actually, he hadn't had time to investigate Jiang Yingying's family. At that moment, Jiang Yingying looked up and said, "He's a battle saint." "Your grandpa's title?" "I also like Second Master Guan from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. He's the martial god of wealth who attracts wealth and treasures." Jiang Yingying hurriedly shook her head. "No, Brother Acre, my grandpa really is a battle saint, Jiang Shaoqi, ? Jiang Yingying, do you know Marshal Jiang from the 10 Generals? Jiang Shaoqi?" Chapter 1458. When he heard the words, Marshal Jiang, Jiang Shaoqi suddenly felt the hair on his back stand on end. There was no way he didn't know who the 10 generals were. Huaguo Water Curtain Group, represented by Old Man Sun, had dealings with the 10 generals. These were the founding fathers of the nation and were full of glory, so the benefits they received were naturally different. Every month, the group would produce elixirs that could help with cultivation, nourish the spirit root, consolidate realms, and all kinds of health benefits, and would be sent to each of the 10 generals' homes in special gift boxes. There had been a few birthdays for a few of them. Jiang Shaoqi remembered that he had personally gone on behalf of Old Man Sun to deliver extra birthday gifts. Thus, although Jiang Shaoqi hadn't personally met all the 10 generals, he had in fact already met a few of them because of work. And as luck would have it, Jiang Shaoqi just happened to know Marshal Jiang. If this battle saint saw him seducing his granddaughter, Jiang Shaoqi felt that he might be given a direct Muay Thai warning and crippled on the spot. "Brother Che, you don't look very good?" Seeing Jiang Shaoqi's expression suddenly change dramatically, Jiang Yingying suddenly felt that she had been too rash just now in revealing her grandfather's true identity. She had probably scared Jiang Shaoqi. But Jiang Yingying herself didn't think it was too strange. In terms of realms and combat strength, the 10 generals were like little brothers in front of him. But in terms of prestige, in the eyes of many native Huaxiao cultivators, the old generals were lofty figures who were like gods. Each of them had blood-soaked legends of fighting bravely on the battlefield back then, and had different hot-blooded stories that were widely circulated among the people. Although some of the 10 generals had already retired, they were still dignified. "Actually, Brother Che, you don't have to be too afraid. Brother Che, you don't have to be too scared. My grandpa might look scary, but he's actually quite approachable," Jiang Yingying said. "Then, didn't the old marshal ask why you came out to see me so late at night these past few days?" "Of course he did," Jiang Yingying said. "I said I came out to consolidate my studies, and that there's a teacher with the surname Jiang who's volunteering to help me with my lessons." A straight-A student coming out to consolidate her studies in the middle of the night actually sounded very outrageous. But the girl had always been obedient, so Marshal Jiang naturally didn't ask too much. It could be said that the past few days were the craziest days of Jiang Yingying's life. However, hearing Jiang Yingying's words, Jiang Shaoqi felt like he was going to have a heart attack. "You didn't show my photo to the old marshal, did you?" This was what he was most worried about. If the lass in front of him was a simpleton, the old marshal would be able to recognize his face in an instant. Once he was exposed, the old marshal would probably come knocking on his door and kill him. With the old marshal's realm, if he wanted to kill him, with his meager HP, he would not be able to withstand a single punch. Fortunately, the girl gave him a calm answer. "Of course not. I'm not that stupid. According to Grandpa's habits, if he posts a photo, he might investigate it directly. At that time, won't he know that Brother Che is not a teacher but a detective?" While listening to Jiang Yingying's words, Jiang Shaoqi's forehead was also sweating. Because all of this was simply too dangerous, Jiang Shaoqi felt that his interaction with Jiang Yingying these past few days was akin to walking back and forth on the edge of death. Fortunately, he restrained himself and did not arrange for Jiang Yingying to talk in a hotel room or something. Instead, he chose to talk in a public area like the restaurant. Otherwise, it was very likely that Marshal Jiang would directly find out about the hotel booking records or something. Even if he said he did nothing, the old marshal probably wouldn't believe him. "Today, let's end it here. You can still eat the dishes on the table if you want." With that, Jiang Shaoqi stood up, wiping his sweat non-stop. Compared to flirting, Jiang Xiaoqi treasured his life more. He was truly afraid of the old marshal's authority, and the thought of cutting off all relations with the girl immediately arose in his mind. That's it? Then what about going to the old street tomorrow and pretending to be a couple? Jiang Yingying was a little surprised. Couple, that won't be necessary. Our previous agreement to pretend to be a couple is voided. Let's pretend nothing happened. Jiang Xiaoqi said. He secretly rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, up until now, nothing had happened. Why? Because my grandfather is Marshal Jiang? The reason here is very complicated. You might think it's nothing, but it's very dangerous for me. And Forget it, let's not talk about it. Jiang Xiaoqi looked at the girl in front of him and shook his head lightly, wanting to say something but hesitating. He had wanted to confess to the girl that he had deceived her and that he wasn't a detective at all. He could only blame himself for everything. He had been careless and couldn't find out the girl's background sooner. He had used his glib tongue to deceive many people. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was an old liar. But now that he saw Jiang Yingying's disappointed expression, he actually wanted to confess. If they had the chance to meet again, perhaps he would tell the girl the truth. But now that he had decided to cut off all relations with her, there was no need to mention it. You were the one who brought this up in the first place. If you don't go, I'll go myself. Seeing that Jiang Xiaoqi was about to leave, Jiang Yingying's stubbornness returned. If you don't want to help me, there are plenty of people who will. Jiang Xiaoqi laughed. Who else can help you? Then I wish him good luck. Jiang Yingying stomped her foot in anger. You coward. You don't deserve classmate Lotus Sun at all. Whatever you say. Jiang Xiaoqi shrugged, took down his suit jacket from the hanger, and left the private room. To be honest, his mind was a mess at the moment, and he felt even more melancholy. Given the girl's stubbornness, since she had already decided on the plan, there was really no way to stop her from carrying it out, so even if he didn't go, Jiang Yingying could indeed find someone else to replace him. But Jiang Xiaoqi was the one who had proposed this plan. If something happened to Jiang Yingying, Jiang Xiaoqi felt that he would be the one to blame. Even though he had already told the girl to stop the plan. But now, with his thoughts in a mess, he couldn't help but worry about what she would do tomorrow. At the same time, in the Jiugong family villa, Jiugong Ryoko also received a message. Lotus Sun is going to the cultivation street tomorrow? Jiugong Ryoko cupped her chin and fell into deep thought. Yes, miss, and 4 other students, the female bodyguard said from the side. She's probably just going to have fun. I'm not interested in this eldest Mississippi. Send someone to follow her and see what she's doing. Take more photos, and if you get any ugly ones, send them to me right away. Jiugong Ryoko said. Yes, Mississippi, the female bodyguard wiped at her sweat and replied. It actually wasn't difficult to follow her, but it might be a little difficult to take ugly photos. After all, that eldest Miss Sun was a peerless beauty with no blind spots. Although she had only caught a glimpse of her through the crack in the door of the student union office, it had already made the female bodyguard gasp in amazement. At that moment, the female bodyguard sighed silently in her heart, and then began to report the second message she had received. Also, there's something else. It seems that Audjua is going as well. What is he going to do? Jiugong Ryoko was curious. I'm not sure. The female bodyguard said. Then, miss, are you going now? If you are, I'll tell the driver to be on standby tomorrow. No need. Jiugong Ryoko shook her head and snorted. How can I, Jiugong Ryoko, waste so much time on an old liar? Chapter 1459. That night, Audjua received Wang Ling's message. In fact, as early as yesterday, he had already received news that Wang Ling and the others were going to play in the ancient cultivation street. Since it was a holiday and he had nothing to do, Audjua had thought of disguising himself and going over to assist his junior sister Sunday. But he had never expected that before he could carry out his plan, Wang Ling would send him a message asking him to secretly follow them. In name, it was to better protect the girl, but in fact, Audrey felt that this wasn't the case at all. He knew his Shifu all too well. Generally speaking, in order to successfully hook up with a girl, a boy would usually find a wingman to act as cover. And this time, Audrey was actually playing the role of a wingman. But his function was different from other wingmen. It was to cover Wang Ling's retreat, thus, this was clearly his Shifu's arrangement. As a result, his plan to assist them would fall through. After all, it was his Shifu Wang Ling who had personally invited him this time, and it was very likely that Wang Ling would be monitoring his movements the whole time. Thus, Audrey felt that this plan to assist them wouldn't be easy to pull off. Last time, he had imitated Wang Ling's voice in the group to tease Lotus Sun, but that had been because he understood Wang Ling's habits, which gave him the perfect opportunity to court death. But the situation now was different. He could only play it by ear. Of course, all of this was just Audrey's own speculation. After all, Wang Ling had only asked him to go so far, but hadn't said what it was for, inside the staff apartment. Audrey made a call to a good friend he had met on that ancient cultivation cultural street. This was the head of the street administration who managed the ancient street. Given their relationship, it would be very easy for him to get a smooth tour pass. Of course, Audrey wasn't trying to take advantage of the situation, but out of consideration for his safety. After all, almost all the projects on the ancient street currently used facial recognition plus identity verification. With a smooth tour card, one could directly use the VIP green channel. He knew that the Jiugong family had been monitoring him all this time. If his identity was registered on the ancient cultivation street, that group of people would probably immediately follow him. Thank you, brother. If possible, use the heaven-sending array to send the card directly to my apartment. Yes, it's still the same address. After saying what he needed, Audrey expressed his thanks and hung up. At that moment, he noticed that the TV screen in the living room seemed to have suddenly blurred, and the figure of a woman seemed to have appeared on it. Audrey rubbed his eyes, and the TV screen returned to normal. Was he too tired during this period of time? Audrey smiled bitterly in his heart. After all, the alliance election was just around the corner. There were many things that he had to do during the working day. In addition, he had been working hard to replenish his knowledge. Take yesterday as an example. In just one day, he had read several classic works by the famous critical writer, Yuan Yuan. For example, I Can't Breathe, Black Death, Women Under the Hooves, Bullets Flying to the Door, Sweet Air, and No One Knows Cultivation Better Than I Do. This was a selection activity that only the directors of the general administration of 100 schools were qualified to participate in. There were a total of 1,282 directorates in all the cities in the country. First- and second-tier cities and county-level cities were all included. However, compared to the general bureaus of other cities, he could be considered to be at ease. Previously, he had seen many people go out on the streets to promote themselves and canvass for votes. It's better to rest early today. Audrey rubbed his eyes and got up to return to the bedroom. He had a premonition. Something earth-shattering was definitely going to happen tomorrow. It was Saturday, December 12th, at the entrance of number 60 high school. Dressed in casual clothes, Wang Ling caught the earliest spirit bus to the school gate. He had woken up very early. It would have been a little boring if he had teleported here earlier. Occasionally taking public transport and admiring the city scenery along the way seemed pretty good. It was Mother Wang who had personally picked out his outfit for him today. He wore a white shirt on top and a pair of slim jeans on the bottom. Wang Ling's legs were already very good to begin with. They were long and slender without losing their curves. They were the type of legs that girls would be envious of, and paired with these jeans, they were even more perfect. When she helped Wang Ling button up his shirt, Mother Wang deliberately didn't fasten all the buttons, and only released the top one so that Wang Ling's collarbone could be seen. After dressing him up, Mother Wang reveled in it for a long time. After all, he was her son, he looked good in anything. Wang Ling sighed silently in his heart. Did he think this outfit was a little out of the ordinary? Because these were all new clothes. Knowing that Wang Ling was going out today, Mother Wang had ordered them overnight yesterday. Forget it, it was fine as long as Mother was happy. Take a few more photos, Ha Lingling. Especially photos of the traditional Chinese clothing, you must take them. When you choose the traditional Chinese clothing, let this girl give you some advice. Mother Wang's big belly was full of smiles as she looked at Wang Ling. When you take photos, remember to temporarily remove your great shielding spell. Don't make it all pixelated, it's not like it's something shameful. By the time Wang Ling's thoughts returned, he had already arrived at the school gate. He had thought that he was early. In the end, he hadn't expected Lotus Sun to be even earlier. Classmate Wang Ling. As soon as she saw him, the girl waved and greeted him warmly. Morning, Wang Ling replied. As always, he was a man of few words. Lotus Sun's face flushed slightly. She didn't know why, but she felt that Wang Ling was completely different today. He wasn't wearing the clothes he had worn before. He was brand new. Had he specially dressed up for this outing? Wang Ling was also very good-looking today. Lotus Sun forcibly suppressed the urge to take out her phone and take continuous photos. She knew that it might be inappropriate to take photos now, and that it might make Wang Ling feel disgusted. If they took photos together, it wouldn't be too awkward. At worst, they could just get rid of the others, leaving just her and Wang Ling. But here was the problem. It was already time for the meeting to end. Li Yuyue, Super Chen, Hero Gua, none of them had come. Lotus Sun dropped her forehead into her hand. At that moment, she could even feel the air freeze and freeze. These three people probably didn't know that they had planned to stand her up from the start, right? Just as she was at her wit's end, Lotus Sun's phone suddenly rang. It was Li Yuyue. Where are you? Classmate Wang Ling and I are already here, Lotus Sun asked. Ah. Sorry, Rong Rong. We're stuck in the subway station. We? That's right, Super Chen, Hero Gua and I are together, we just happened to run into each other. Someone suddenly fainted in the subway, causing the line to be blocked. It's the morning rush hour, and it's a mess here. Then don't worry about us. How about this, let's directly meet at the corner of the old street. Got it. Lotus Sun nodded and hung up. Thank goodness, she hadn't been stood up, otherwise she really wouldn't know what to do. But very quickly, the girl's face turned red again. Because this meant, she and Wang Ling would be riding on the same vehicle. Furthermore, it would be crowded on the bus. It was very likely that they would end up together. Chapter 1460. Taking public transportation together, there was actually a lot of potential risk at this time. Although Wang Ling had taken a spirit bus earlier, that was because the Wang family's small villa was in a remote area, and there were basically no people on the bus. Plus, he got up especially early, so he didn't have to worry about squeezing into other people. Then, there was the problem of breaking other people's bones. He just needed to cast the Great Lightweight spell on himself before he got on the bus. This was a spell that could quickly reduce his weight. After all, his body was too dense, and he had even caused number 60 High's newly renovated transmission array to collapse. That was because his battle strength now seemed to have increased a lot. One Great Lightweight spell was no longer enough, he had to cast it several times in a row. So to sum it up, at that moment, Lotus Sun's worries were actually very reasonable. In a crowded situation, it was indeed easy to create all kinds of awkwardness and risks. For one thing, there were a lot of perverts nowadays, and it really wasn't safe for girls to be squeezed. What Wang Ling was worried about was that after he got on the bus, a group of people would crowd him. When they got off the bus, all of them would break their bones. Then, it might trigger a butterfly effect, such as a traffic crash and so on. Perhaps this matter would even attract widespread attention. On a crowded bus, all the passengers were healthy when they got on the bus, but when they got off the bus, they all broke their bones. This would definitely become an urban legend. And most importantly, it seemed that he wasn't the only one with a problem now. Actually, Lotus Sun was just as dangerous for other people. After the girl's passive version of becoming one with the sword, her battle strength had increased substantially. This was the most powerful foundation establishment on Earth, and also the most dangerous. It was the spirit sword's instinct to protect its master. That was to say, if there really were perverts on the bus. Mysterious C's sword chi would directly be released to protect Lotus Sunday. This was the passive version of the master-saving mechanism. How many people in the bus would be able to survive after the sword chi was unleashed? It probably wouldn't just be the bus, everything within a radius of several dozen li would be severely affected. Mysterious C's sword chi was just that terrifying. And for those potential perverts, of course, they would never expect a foundation establishment girl to be able to cause such devastating damage. For Wang Ling, life was sometimes just that bitter. But there was nothing he could do, he was already used to it. Life couldn't always be smooth sailing, and it was normal to have ups and downs. The most important thing was to learn to adapt and enjoy life. Perhaps he would be able to solve the problem of the talisman or find another way to control the unlimited growth of his body. Only then would he be able to truly enjoy life. For a moment, a myriad of thoughts ran through their minds. However, it was clear that this was not the time to be melancholic. I've thought about it. Actually, we don't have to take transportation. Then, Lotus Sun was the first to speak. She was still thinking from Wang Ling's point of view. I originally thought that flying a sword would also work. However, the Cultivation Culture Street has a flight restriction. The fine is a small matter, but the main problem is that it will take a lot of time. So? Wang Ling raised an eyebrow and looked at Lotus Sunday. Classmate Wang Ling, how about we teleport over? It had to be said that Lotus Sun's suggestion was on point. Because it was the same as what Wang Ling was thinking. In any case, there wasn't anyone in front of number 60 High's gate right now. It would be easy to teleport to a remote area. The most important thing was that Li Yuyue, Super Chen and Hero Guo weren't here. It was only natural that they would activate their abilities. Just do it. Elsewhere, at the intersection of the Cultivation Culture Street, Li Yuyue, Super Chen and Hero Guo were bored to death as they sat on a bench in the square at the intersection of the street. Under the shade of a tree, Super Chen had an ominous premonition. By the way, is this really okay? It's all about creating opportunities for Boss Sun, what's wrong with that? Hero Guo started to play a mobile game on his phone. He didn't have the time to relax at all. Holding the number 1 account in the entire server, this feeling of being a big shot was delightful. Instead of being a big shot yourself, it's better to have a big shot by your side. Isn't it better to cling to a big shot's thigh? Said Super Chen. That's true. Boss Sun is now our big shot. How much pocket money do you think she gets every month? I think it's at least 1 million or so. This was Hero Guo's estimate, based on the benefits Lotus Sun had given them. Given Huaguo Water Curtain Group's wealth, 1 million in pocket money actually wasn't excessive. Envious. Super Chen sighed. What a pity, in the end, Wang Ling still got lucky. If Lingzi really marries Lotus Sun in the future, won't he also become a nouveau riche? Don't think too much, he might not be able to reach this step. Li Yuyue was actually a little worried. Liking, falling in love, getting married, these were 3 different things. Looking further down, liking was also divided into active and passive liking, which was liking someone and being liked. Being liked was also a secret love. After a whole semester, it had been very difficult to go from a secret love to an open love. But the problem was, these two still hadn't made any progress. As her bestie, Li Yuyue also felt melancholy. So the main problem was actually that piece of wood. In my experience, classmate Wang Ling is actually the kind of person who isn't easy to deal with. So it's actually very important to create more opportunities for them. Li Yuyue said, it's already pretty good if they can confirm their relationship before graduation. I think, maybe they won't even be sure after graduation. Rongrong might have to pursue him all the way to university and coax him for a long time before there's any hope. But how can anyone last that long? At that moment, Hirogwa stopped what he was doing and looked at Li Yuyue. After all, there had been news on the internet about celebrities meeting, falling in love, and then getting married, claiming that it was some kind of predestined love or 10-year romance. In the end, they still broke up not long after they were together. Relationships were very complicated, even if you put aside the factor of Lotus Sun's family background. It was also very rare for a girl to invest so much time in a boy. Actually, was it a boy or a girl? After a long period of chasing without any results, wouldn't they want to retreat out of despair? I don't know how long Rongrong can last, but I definitely won't hang on to a boy. Even if I meet someone I like very much, I'll spend a year or two at most to pursue him. If there's no result, it means that we're not fated, Li Yuyue said. A year or two? Hirogwa and Super Chen were astonished. This was actually a very long time for a girl. But this was, after all, an era of national cultivation, and female cultivators didn't need to worry about aging as they grew older. After all, there were too many ways to preserve one's looks. If you really met someone you liked, spending a year or two to pursue him was nothing. What are you talking about? Just then, a familiar voice rang out from behind the three of them. Senior Ajua? Li Yuyue was instantly pleasantly surprised. Senior, why are you here? It's business. Ajua smiled mysteriously. I'll go in first. The three of you, pretend you never saw me, got it? Okay. Senior Ajua, the three of them said in unison. Good girl. Ajua walked over with a smile and patted Li Yuyue on the shoulder. This action in itself actually didn't have any meaning. It was like a customary greeting between brothers and sisters of the same sect. But what Ajua didn't know was that, this action caused the temperature on the other side of the square to suddenly drop quite a few degrees. Dressed in a black cloak, Ryoko Kamiya was sitting on a bench on the other side. She happened to see this scene between Ajua and Li Yuyue. P.S. Chapter 7 of Lotus Sun and Wang Wan, Forever Young has been updated on the official account, Ku Xianjun. Chapter 1461. Under the cloak, Jumiya Ryoko's resentful eyes looked like they could swallow Ajua whole. As expected of an old pretentious liar. Not only did he use stolen glory to brand himself as a role model for his junior brothers and sisters in the same sect, but he actually tried to conspire against his own junior sister. As a leader of an educational institution certified by the government, there was something very wrong with his style. Kamiya Ryoko pretended to be reading a book. There was a thick, dictionary-like book on her slender thigh. She pretended to be reading, but was in fact talking to the ghost collected in the book. Record everything? Jumiya Ryoko said coldly. The ghost she was facing now was a ghost made in Huashio Nation that had fled to Sun Island earlier, and was nicknamed Pen Fairy. Yes. I've memorized everything. Pen Fairy nodded submissively. Dressed in red, she recorded what she heard on the drawing table, and then directly drew what she saw. Her precision was no different from that of a digital camera. At the same time, the recorded words could be extracted. As long as the incantation was recited afterward, the recorded words would produce Ajua's own voice. As expected of the Pen Fairy, Jumiya Ryoko was very satisfied. This ghost called Pen Fairy was in fact very powerful. She had created the legend of Pen Fairy for herself, and had people who believed in this legend summon her. In the name of an immortal, she had divined the future for people at the cost of devouring yang qi and lifespan. But the truth was that such divinations had no effect at all, and were all tricks to deceive people. The most troublesome thing was that the legend of the Pen Fairy had spread all over the world, causing this ghost to commit crimes all over the world. In the end, it could even create all kinds of fake bodies to collect rent, in place of the original body. The Jiogong family had paid a huge price to capture this Pen Fairy, but fortunately, they had successfully set up a trap and captured the original body of the Pen Fairy on Sun Island. After that, there was nothing else. Now, the pen fairy was forever sealed in the Jogong family's ghost register, and had become Jimiya Ryoko's record keeper. The Jogong family's ghost register contained all kinds of troublesome ghosts that the family had captured since its founding. Now, with the accumulation of time, the ghosts in the main book were so strong that they could no longer be suppressed by humans. Therefore, it had always been sealed in the underground cellar of the Jogong family. The book in Kumiya Ryoko's hand was actually a copy of the ghost record. The copy and the ghosts recorded in the main book were completely synchronized in terms of categories. However, the power of these ghosts was greatly weakened. Because of this, Ryoko Kwamiya could easily command these ghosts to work for her. I'll have to trouble you all today. Closing the book, Ryoko Kwamiya stood up. She wasn't interested in those number 60 high students, and had only come to collect evidence of Ajua's crimes. Last night, Ajua had seen the figure of a woman on TV. In fact, he hadn't been hallucinating. Instead, Ryoko was using the ghost named A-Zhen in the ghost chart to monitor Ajua's situation. A-Zhen originally had a beautiful love when she was alive. Unfortunately, because the man she loved, A-Chang, had a change of heart, he colluded with other women to kill her. Before he died, A-Zhen channeled all of his resentment into the television in front of him. After that, she began to take revenge. Anyone who didn't have a TV but publicly displayed their love in front of the screen, or couples who wanted to use the sound of the TV to cover up the sound of their cars, none of them escaped A-Zhen's evil clutches. Furthermore, if A-Zhen knew that a man was dating several women at the same time, that man would die an even more miserable death. But that was all in the past. The era when A-Zhen fell in love with Chang was already over. A-Zhen was now an important intelligence agent under Ryoko Kamiya's command. She saw Ajua get up and walk toward the entrance of the old street. Ryoko Kamiya hurriedly got up from the bench and secretly followed Ajua. Ajua, you never would have guessed that all your actions are under my control. She couldn't help sneering in her heart. At the entrance of the old street, Ajua took out his smooth play card to verify his identity, and a staff member recognized him. But Ajua just gave them a look, and they quickly understood. These were all mature staff members who had already been replaced by Old Man Sunday. Given Old Man Sun's current friendship with Ajua, Ajua's face still carried a lot of weight in the hearts of these mature staff members. The mature staff members gave professional smiles. Welcome to the old street. After a few steps, Ajua's lips curled up into a meaningful smile. Are you following me? The truth was that he had already sensed something was off last night. After all, one of Ajua's pupils had partial authority over the king's eye. Although this authority was minuscule, it was still a matter of minutes to deal with a ghost. Classmate Ryoko Kamiya, let's wait and see. For some reason, Ajua felt that his smile was a little stiff. He pretended that he didn't know, and continued to walk forward at his own pace. He especially wanted to see what Ryoko Kamiya was going to do next. On the other side, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun teleported to a remote bush in front of Old Street Square. This was a relatively hidden location. No one had seen them teleport here. Let's go. Hands in his trouser pockets, Wang Ling looked at the girl and then stepped out of the bush. Outside the bush, a mother and daughter happened to be looking at the scene in front of them with extreme shock. If a boy came out from behind the bush like this, he might not be able to find a toilet, so he was looking for a corner to relieve himself, but a boy and a girl came out of the bush one after the other. The scene in front of them inevitably made one's imagination run wild. Wang Ling had a feeling that he and Lotus Sun might be misunderstood. What was worse was that in order to show his collarbone, Mother Wang had deliberately left all the buttons on his shirt undone. Thus, when the middle-aged woman with her daughter saw the scene, she almost immediately imagined an indescribable drama. Mom! Why did Big Brother and Big Sister come out from that place? The little girl was curious. Child! Don't be nosy. It's not suitable for children. The middle-aged woman's face flushed red as she pulled her daughter away. She exclaimed in her heart. Young people nowadays were too bold. In broad daylight, in the clear sky, indescribable, shameless. Chapter 1462. Outside the ancient cultivation culture street, inside a black off-road vehicle. A man in black wearing the Jogong family's trademark purple-eyed crow emblem was using binoculars to observe Jogong Yoshiko, who had entered the street with odd joie. Headquarters, entry confirmed. Then, the man in black put down the binoculars and replied to the mini transmitter on his chest. At the same time, in the huge Jogong family residence on Sun Island. In the courtyard, which was as large as an ancient palace, a young man with lower limbs disabled was pushing a wheelchair around the cherry blossom garden. Cherry blossom petals with a light, elegant fragrance drifted down from the surrounding cherry blossom trees and landed on the young man's sleeves and thighs. The expression on his face was a little sad. Complicated emotions swirled in his heart. Even in such a beautiful scene, he still couldn't completely calm down. Behind him was a middle-aged man in samurai armor. He had one eye and looked so fierce that no one dared approach him. This was the Jogong family's exclusive bodyguard, who was responsible for his safety as well as running some errands for him. The young man's legs were inconvenient, so the one-eyed man had to complete many tasks on his behalf. Doing this is too unfair to Yoshiko. Hideshi Jogong frowned. Those who achieve great things must make sacrifices. Perhaps this is cruel to Miss Yoshiko, but with her around, the crippled young master will never be able to inherit the throne. The one-eyed warrior mused. Besides, Miss Yoshiko and you are only half-sisters. Miss Yoshiko is the eldest daughter of the second wife. You are the daughter of the first wife. But she's still my younger sister. Hideshi Jogong was still conflicted. When it comes to great things, sacrifices are inevitable. The one-eyed warrior's voice was cold. Besides, it's too late for young Master Hideshi to regret it now. If you hadn't been determined to fight for the position of head of the Jogong family from the beginning, you wouldn't have accepted my proposal. Are you talking about me, hypocrite? Hideshi Jogong turned to look at him. No, I didn't say that. The one-eyed warrior's expression didn't change, and he just rolled his eyes in his heart. This Hideshi Jogong had called him out early in the morning and wandered around the cherry blossom garden for a long time. For one-eyed, it was too disgusting for a straight man like him to accompany a man to see cherry blossoms. If it weren't for the fact that Jogong Shoshir was the only son of First Madam and that First Madam had entrusted him with a task, he wouldn't have done so. He had already broken Kuga Shoshir's third leg. Jogong Shoshir's hypocrisy was not fake at all. However, for the sake of repaying the First Madam, one-eyed could only tolerate the young man before him no matter how hypocritical he was. Everything was for the sake of the plan. At that moment, Hideshi Q heard the voice from his communication device. He looked at the one-eyed man. It seems that everything went smoothly. Yoshiko has already gone in. Understood. It was a rare opportunity for Miss Yoshiko to act alone. This time, we definitely won't fail, the one-eyed warrior said. Can it really unseal the ghost record? It's impossible to completely unseal the main book. We can only target a certain page or a few pages. The one-eyed samurai said, we've already investigated the ghosts that Miss Yoshiko often uses. As long as he tore apart the part of the main record, these ghosts would be released. The copy of the ghost register in Miss Yoshiko's hands is the escape route for these ghosts whose seals have been removed. After Wang Ling and Lotus Sun came out of the bushes, they had actually already sensed the auras of Super Chen and the others. Sure enough, these three people had lied earlier, nothing had happened on the subway at all. But considering that he and Lotus Sun had teleported here, they had a tacit understanding not to go over immediately. It would take at least half an hour to get here from number 60 High School's main gate by car at the fastest speed. If they went out now, they wouldn't be able to explain how they could travel so quickly. They chose a bench on the west side and sat down. From this angle, Super Chin and the others wouldn't be able to see them at all. We'll go over in half an hour. Lotus Sun said. Wang Ling replied. Out of the corner of his eye, he sized up the girl's test and then sat down. In fact, the reason why they couldn't go over now wasn't just because of the time problem caused by teleportation. Another very important point was that the girl's blush had yet to subside. After all, that middle-aged woman's speech just now had been too shocking. Who knew if it was because Sun Yinger had been driving all this time, but the girl, who hadn't been very familiar with these things before, had now become especially sensitive. Boo-hoo-hoo. It was all Inger's fault. She had made her unclean. Half an hour's time seemed extremely long, yet it also seemed extremely short. Wang Ling's eyes were slightly closed, and he was as quiet as a statue, as if he had fallen asleep. A fallen leaf fell on Wang Ling's head. Lotus Sun stretched out her hand to pluck it off, but Wang Ling got up first and shook the leaf off. It had already been half an hour, and time was up. Wang Ling had been counting with his eyes closed just now. He didn't want to waste a single second. Because the Crispy Noodle Snacks flagship store on the old street was already open, he could smell the pepper in the plastic bag from afar. Lotus Sun withdrew her hand with slight regret. It had clearly been a very close opportunity for Wang Ling just now. The girl realized that when she was alone, she wasn't as brave as she had imagined. Perhaps she should have been a little bolder. Like President Ng, who had directly pounded the wall, seeing that Wang Ling was already walking towards Super Chen and the others, Lotus Sun came back to her senses and hurriedly chased after him. Classmate Wang Ling, wait for me. Hearing the girl's voice, Wang Ling paused and turned slightly to look at the girl behind him. It was a fleeting glimpse. The moment he turned around, a gust of wind lifted the youngster's collar. As his hair danced in the wind, from the girl's point of view, the overflowing sense of youth was already indescribable. Lotus Sun was stupefied. At the same time, Sun Yinger, who had been silent for a long time, also screamed in Lotus Sun's mind. Sun Yinger, aw. Ling Zhenren. 2A. Who knew how many times bigger than Wang Ying's? This scream could be said to have broken all her concentration in a second, and instantly pulled the girl back to herself. Lotus Sun felt her face, which had just calmed down, start to heat up again. In the distance, Hirogwa and the others waved in greeting when they saw Wang Ling and Lotus Sun coming in their direction. To be honest, they had thought they would have to wait for another half an hour. How did you get here? That's too fast. Hirogwa was incredulous. Half an hour is indeed fast. Don't tell me you teleported? Super Chen echoed. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun quickly explained, we took a taxi. All right. That's not important. Everyone's been waiting for a long time, let's hurry up and go in. As soon as she said this, Super Chen and Hirogwa directly grabbed Wang Ling, and the three of them put their arms around each other's shoulders as they walked toward the entrance, looking very close to each other. Men are just like this. Li Yue sighed. Their relationship is really good. To be honest, Lotus Sun was a little envious of the scene in front of her. Just now, for half an hour, she hadn't had the courage to reach out. In the end, Super Chen and Hirogwa had hooked up so easily. Are you jealous? Li Yue was instantly amused. No. Lotus Sun retorted. Fine, I'll pretend it's nothing. You're the boss, you have the final say. Li Yue smiled meaningfully. Let's go together, don't get left behind by the three of them. Lotus Sun nodded. Then, the two girls followed behind, arm in arm. At the very front, the three of them had their arms around each other's shoulders. Wang Ling was caught in the middle and was being questioned. Super Chen chuckled. Wang Ling, be honest. Tell me what you did to Lotus Sun on the way here. Hirogwa echoed, that's right. You have to be honest. I saw Lotus Sun's face turn red just now. You didn't do anything dirty in the car, did you? Wang Ling, ? After Wang Ling's group of 5 smoothly passed through the entrance to the old street, a janitor who had been covering himself up very tightly took off his mask and hat. Wang Ling. Lotus Sun, in the car? Jiang Yingying had probably heard these terms when she had disguised herself as a janitor. At that moment, she stared in the direction of Wang Ling's group of 5, her hand holding the broom trembling slightly. Chapter 1463. It took Jiang Yingying several minutes to digest the scene in front of her. Her mind was a mess of envy, jealousy, and a little bit of hatred. All kinds of emotions mixed together like spilled seasonings, leaving Jiang Yingying with mixed feelings. It was a pity that she hadn't met Wang Ling earlier. If only she could have known him earlier. There was no way that this rich young miss could be so familiar with Wang Ling. Of course, she wouldn't give Lotus Sun any chance. Fortunately, it wasn't too late now. After all, according to Jiang Yingying's own inquiries, Lotus Sun and Wang Ling hadn't officially confirmed their relationship yet. That was to say, she still had a chance. She had begged the sanitation workers in the area for a long time to get the clothes for the staff. It was not easy for her to get it. The sanitation supervisor had fiercely refused her first. She acted cute. Refused again. Continued acting cute. When she refused for the 3rd time, Jiang Yingying said, "My grandpa is Jiang Baosheng." She then took out her phone and flashed a cute photo of herself and Marshal Jiang. The supervisor's expression instantly changed, and he handed over the clothes on the spot. Jiang Yingying thought that she must have been too cute. This move had always been very useful. She went to the public women's restroom near the square and changed into a new set of clothes. Jiang Yingying wore a mask and sunglasses, and quickly used a hair dye to change her hair color so that she looked like a foreign girl from the Western world. Then, she carefully put away the sanitation workers' clothes. When the matter was over, she would be responsible for returning the clothes to the sanitation worker. At that moment, the fake boyfriend had arrived. Wei Ji was wearing a peaked cap and was also standing at the door tightly. Jiang Yingying had begged him to come here last night. Pretending to be his girlfriend, she wasn't really his girlfriend, so what was the point? The point was, for Wei Ji, Jiang Yingying could only be considered his little sister. If it wasn't for Marshal Jiang mentioning her all the time and looking for him several times about spirit beasts, there was no way Wei Ji would have anything to do with Jiang Yingying. And the truth was that Wei Ji didn't need a girlfriend. He felt that he was already too busy taking care of his domesticated spirit beasts. Spirit beasts were simple and could act cute. They didn't have as many complicated thoughts and schemes as humans. In a sense, Wei Ji felt that spending a lifetime with a spirit beast was not a bad choice. "Brother Wei Ji, I'm counting on you." Jiang Yingying pressed on Wei Ji's shoulder, her eyes blazing. Wei Ji wasn't very tall. He was only a little taller than Jiang Yingying, but from afar, they did look like a couple. "I know." Wei Ji pressed down on his hat, his expression slightly awkward. If it wasn't for Marshal Jiang, he wouldn't have come. Moreover, this mission was actually very dangerous for Wei Ji. Because apart from Li Yuyue, he knew everyone else from number 60 high. Furthermore, Wang Ling was his good brother and Loopy Toad's master. "Let's go, brother Wei Ji." They all went in. At this moment, Jiang Yingying's sweet voice interrupted Wei Ji's thoughts. She took the initiative to hold Wei Ji's hand and pull him forward. "Yingying, slow down." Wei Ji had no choice but to follow the girl's footsteps. The two of them walked in the direction of the entrance. Wei Ji was still a little puzzled by Jiang Yingying's sudden visit. "But I still don't understand why you're looking for me. Originally, I wanted to look for Brother Yi. But isn't he still being treated in the hospital? He hasn't recovered yet?" "I heard that he's recovered a little. He can get out of bed and walk normally, but he's a little afraid of seeing sharp objects." Wei Ji was stupefied. An outstanding spirit sword user was actually afraid of seeing sharp objects. It seemed that Yi Jiang had indeed suffered a huge blow after his duel with Lotus Sunday. Wei Ji had also been paying attention to the 9 Dragon Mountain competition. Later, He had heard about Yi Jiang's psychological trauma, but he hadn't expected it to be this serious. Then what should we do in the future? Wei Ji asked. It seems that he can only overcome this obstacle on his own. There's no other way. Taking a break is actually good for his recovery. Brother Yi was quite happy when I said I would go to Old Street and ask him for help, said Jiang Yingying. And then? Then I said that Lotus Sun would also come here. He was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. So, I'm just a spare tire? Of course not. If this doesn't work out in the end, then I'll be with Brother Wei Ji. Jiang Yingying said coquettishly. She knew that Wei Ji had absolutely no such thoughts. Hee hee. Wei Ji shook his head with a wry smile. I'm telling you, I'll only help you this once. As he spoke, he reached out and gently wrapped his arms around the girl's waist. Then, he and Jiang Yingying passed through the entrance of Old Street. Since he was pretending to be her boyfriend, it was important to act like it. As for being Jiang Yingying's real boyfriend, Wei Ji didn't even dare to think about it. After all, Marshal Jiang was still giving him pressure. At that moment, a man in a black windbreaker followed Wei Ji and Jiang Yingying into Old Street. He had a smooth travel card and didn't need to verify his identity. He kept a considerable distance from Jiang Yingying to avoid being discovered. When he heard that Jiang Yingying was going to ask someone else to pretend to be her boyfriend, he was still worried and decided to come and take a look himself. From his movements, this man in a baseball cap seemed to be very familiar with Jiang Yingying. When the girl took the initiative to hold his hand and walk forward, Jiang Xiaoqie felt his heart twitch. Jiang Xiaoqie felt his heart twitch, and he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. When he saw Wei Ji reach out and wrap his arms around Jiang Yingying's waist, Jiang Xiaoqie felt like he was going to faint. Where did they find this old pervert? Jiang Xiaoqie gritted his teeth as he watched. He wanted to rush forward and separate the two of them. Jiang Xiaoqie took a few deep breaths and tried his best to calm himself down. His mission today was to ensure the girl's safety. It was only Lolan's waist and the girl was willing to do it. As an outsider, he naturally had no right to interfere. He needed to keep track of this fake boyfriend to prevent him from doing anything improper. He also needed to investigate suspicious people. For example, Jiang Xiaoqie noticed that there were a few suspicious men on Old Street. Although they were dressed in casual clothes, their gazes remained vigilant. Apart from that, Jiang Xiaoqie also noticed the tattoo on their ankles. Although he couldn't see it clearly from this angle, he could roughly confirm that it was a crow. Chapter 1464. Jiang Xiaoqie remembered that he had seen this crow pattern somewhere before, and it had felt familiar at first glance. His mind quickly searched through his memories, and while he was doubtful, he used his phone to search for the keyword Jiugong on the internet. Then, the Jiugong family's iconic purple-eyed crow emblem appeared on Jiang Xiaoqie's phone screen. It was actually a pop-up advertisement. The Jiugong family emblem filled up half the screen of Jiang Xiaoqie's phone, and below it was the slogan, "Professional Exorcism, a century-old brand." It's indeed the Jiugong family's emblem, Jiang Xiaoqie muttered to himself as he stared at his phone. What were these people from the Jiugong family doing on this old street? And it looked like they had their eyes on Jiang Yingying. Jiang Xiaoqie felt that there was something fishy about this. After returning home yesterday, he had reorganized the information on Jiang Yingying. As the girl had said, she was indeed the granddaughter of Battle Saint Marshal Jiang. Jiang Xiaoqie had spent a long time carefully going through Jiang Yingying's information from top to bottom. He knew her height and 3 measurements very clearly, and still remembered them deeply. He didn't remember seeing any interaction between Jiang Yingying and the Jiugong family. Let's observe them first. Jiang Xiaoqie frowned as he watched this group of people from the Jiugong family follow Jiang Yingying and Wei Ji, pretending to stare at their phones as they silently tailed them. Today's old street was indeed livelier than Wang Ling had imagined. In addition to them, Audiobook had come here at Wang Ling's request. But Wang Ling hadn't expected Jiugong Ryoko to come here. Apart from Jiugong Ryoko, there were also the auras of Jiang Yingying, Wei Ji, and Jiang Shaoqi. Wang Ling knew all of them. No matter how deeply they hid their auras, they couldn't escape Wang Ling's perception. Wang Ling felt a little tired. It seemed that everyone had come on this trip with ulterior motives, and it could be said that they each had their own ulterior motives. But everything else wasn't a big deal. What Wang Ling was more concerned about now were the people from the Jiugong family who had been following Jiugong Ryoko. As soon as they entered the old street, Wang Ling had already noticed this group of people sneaking behind them. Soon, it was confirmed that these people were actually following Kiyomiya Yoshiko. Furthermore, he purposely kept a long distance away, afraid that he would be discovered. Logically speaking, as a young mistress, it was reasonable for the Kyuko family to send people to protect her in secret. However, this group of people was obviously not Kiyomiya Ryoko's bodyguards. Although they were both from the Q family, they did not come with the intention of protecting Q Ryoko. Each of them was concealing their killing intent, as if they were preparing for something. These were the top experts of the Jiugong family, and it was very difficult for ordinary people to detect the hidden killing intent on their bodies. This was also one of the reasons why he had set his sights on this group as soon as he had entered the old street. Of course, the current situation was actually very interesting. The reason for that was because the people from the Jiugong family did not realize that they had been exposed. What's more, they didn't know that there was another man staring at them from behind. "I'll warn Audra first," Wang Ling muttered in his heart. He didn't even take out his phone. Instead, he put his hand in his trouser pocket and swiped open the screen. Relying on his skilled operation, he quickly tapped on the screen. Just like that, a specially edited text message was sent to Audra. To an outsider, Wang Ling had just put his hand in his trouser pocket, and there was nothing unnatural about it. In short, it was better to focus on the matter at hand first. Wang Ling looked very relaxed, but in fact, he had never let down his guard. In addition to the complicated situation behind him, he also noticed that a lot of people were looking at him at that moment. A lot of shopping girls whispered to each other as they passed by him. "Hey, that boy with single eyelids looks quite interesting." Indeed. White shirt. And a kind of ascetic style. The point is, isn't this the face of my ideal first love? Although these girls spoke very quietly, Wang Ling could still hear them clearly. It was no wonder, today, Mother Wang had dressed him up so well that he really stood out. It would have been better if he had worn ordinary clothes. But it actually didn't matter if he was seen, because the great shielding spell had already been upgraded. These girls might still be talking about him now, but they would soon forget about it. At this moment, the great shielding spell had a new function, Fate Dao intersection. That was to say, apart from malicious investigations, Wang Ling was now blocked. Passers-by who wouldn't have any deep interactions with him in his life would quickly forget what he looked like even if they saw him. It was like a dream. No matter how mysterious the dream was, most people wouldn't remember what they had dreamed of after waking up for a while. So where on earth are we going? Super Chen looked somewhere. I think that's a good place. It was an ancient cold weapons shop with the words, "My lord, times have changed," written on the signboard. Cultivators in the old era didn't have such powerful magic weapons and didn't incorporate the wisdom of modern science. Moreover, it didn't incorporate the wisdom of modern science, and this cold weapons shop only introduced cold weapons commonly used by cultivators of that era. They were very cumbersome, and a lot of spirit energy was needed to increase the power of the magic weapons. This shop has tours and activities. It costs 100 yuan per visit, and there are prizes, Lotus Sun said at that moment. Last night, she had already familiarized herself with the tour guide for the entire ancient street. Although it was her first time here, she was actually very familiar with every shop. What kind of activity is it? Stone spear throwing. Let's see how far you can throw it. But only cultivators below the nascent soul stage can participate. We're all Foundation Establishment students, so we don't need to provide proof of our realms with our student IDs. Saying this, Lotus Sun couldn't help looking at Wang Ling a little regretfully. After learning of Wang Ling's true strength, she now had to consider a lot of things in light of his actual situation. Stone spear throwing. For other people, it was just for fun. The field was very wide, and they wouldn't be able to do anything special. But for student Wang Ling, it was very dangerous. If he didn't control his strength well, he might directly throw it out of the solar system. What about the prizes? Super Chen asked at that moment. There are different prizes for each distance. The grand prize is 5,000 meters, but it's actually quite difficult. The stone spears are very heavy, so it's a little difficult to throw them. Lotus Sun said, the grand prize is a marrow cleansing pill. The second prize is a youth retaining pill, and the third prize is an old street voucher. There's also a reward for throwing less than 100 meters. It's this cold weapons shop's medal. As if hearing Lotus Sun's words, an employee in the cold weapons shop suddenly came out. Is this your first time coming to the old street? Today's prize isn't a medal. Not a medal? Lotus Sun was blank. But yesterday, it's like this, our shop's encouragement prize actually isn't fixed. For example, today's prize will be a prize for limited snacks from the old street. Hearing this, Lotus Sun immediately felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Logically speaking, if that was the case, the Platinum Strategy Guide that she had read shouldn't have missed such details. This is an event organized by our shop in conjunction with the Crispy Noodle Snacks flagship store next door. You can use the prize voucher to draw a prize in their shop. If it's your first time here, you can have a free trial vote. At that moment, the shop assistant gave a meaningful smile. Why would a cold weapons shop like yours especially cooperate with a snack shop? Apart from being a snack shop, we're also a shop with sports programs, aren't we? Since it's sports, there will be consumption. It's reasonable to use snacks to replenish energy. The shop assistant replied, a cold weapons shop without crispy noodle snacks is like losing the starting point mentioned in this chapter. It has no soul. Hearing this, Lotus Sun instantly felt that things had become even stranger. Apart from the core members of Battle's sect, she was the only one who knew that student Wang Ling liked crispy noodle snacks. The only possibility left was, Grandpa? You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.